We say things that don't mean anything, but thanks for listening. Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to We Say Things, episode 175, with Guest BuLba, who's not going to say anything yet because I told him not to. I was just checking to make sure that he was paying attention.
Yeah, I'm here.
This episode, of course, is sponsored by Manscaped. Hey, fellas, this episode of We Say Things is brought to you by our favorite producers of ball trimmers, Manscaped. The global leaders in below-the-waist grooming are leaving 2022 with brand new products, Persevere Cologne and Persevere Body Wash. 2023 is the year to up your hygiene game and smell amazing. And Manscaped wants to help you do this with a special offer. Use the code WeSayThings for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Take the leap into the new year and join the 7 million men who already trust Manscaped. I know that our guest could probably use some testicle hair removing products himself.
Have you used it?
I have, actually. It's quite good.
Really?
If you visit, I can let you use mine.
God, it must be good. It must be jungle down there.
Hey, I am half Middle Eastern.
Exactly. I know. I've lived with you in the same room, dude.
That's true. So BuLba,
Shed hair.
BuLba, thank you for joining us. I've been trying to get you on for, it feels like years, and you've always said no. What changed your mind?
Well, probably it's because you've been asking for so long. I'm like, let me give this old man. But yeah, I guess you've been asking for so long. Also, it's like this break has been so long, so it's probably been like the longest break I think most of us and the Dota scene have been in for a while now. Feels like,
Yes.
I guess since COVID at least. So
Sure.
yeah, I think that's basically it. Just maybe it just felt like, and I think I was already messaging you about something, or I don't know exactly, but yeah.
Yeah, for help on something, I'm sure, as always.
At some point, you reach critical mass where it's like, okay, doing this one episode to not get asked another 100 times is worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
makes
true.
sense.
Okay, so I got to do our Patreon shout-outs real quick. Sometimes we give this to our guests. I'm going to save you the pain that is reading these sometimes from the In Bruges tier. Thank you to Rupus, Q Ludes, the 3v3 online Metroidvania MOBA hybrid. Okay. Stupid _ Copilot, Persian Tongue Twister, Sunsfan, you nailed it. Oh, he has a new one. Oh shit, this one's hard. Day Shar She Da. I don't know how to fucking do that one.
Nice.
D2 Bowie, Yatoro does it again, Cinderin, A Scorpy. I also agree with Sunsfan that CSGO is the best spectator esport, maybe an ad because Valve won't for their games. Oscar Magdev Seeker used all his Spirit Vessel charges on Santa Pudge. My grandma still doesn't know what Dota is. Disco Farm D. Oh boy, he changed his name, Cinderin. Taste Me Boo, Stoogey McStooge, Daddy Stood, Notice Me, Senpai Stooge, Santa's Ballsack Stooge, Schadenfreude Stooge. It's better. The Megapope.
It's fucking even worse. You wouldn't think it was possible, but it
Hello, friends and Sunsfan. I hope you all have a lovely holiday season. TI in New Zealand. Thank you, friend.
Nice.
Zan Xavier, Nate Thicko01, Hamscroats, Bacon, Shark TM, Freshly Seasoned Goat Balls, Janie, Dop, Nothing to See Here, _man, Guitar Strings, Eve Remort. Ben, his Patreon names are too long and they're annoying to read out on the podcast. Broomhead, Wooden Aftertaste, Anonymous, and a million seconds is 12 days. A billion seconds is 31 years. A trillion seconds is 31,688 years. Mr. Niebling, thank you. Interesting fact.
We'll quiz you on that later, Boba. It's part of the end.
All right, Bulbs. Usually we start out these episodes with a rapid fire initiation, okay? I know you haven't watched any of our episodes, so you have no idea what I'm talking about, but
I've seen a few of them.
so I'm going to say two things, sorry, and you pick one quickly. You don't think about it, okay?
Yeah, fuck.
You can do.
Okay, go.
You can do this. Some of them are very easy. Okay. Playing or coaching?
Playing.
Dota pre 7.0 or post 7.0?
Post.
Storm Spirit or any other fucking hero?
Storm Spirit.
Cake or pie?
Pi.
Okay, you got most of those wrong. Sorry about that, BuLba. But good attempt, my friend. So yeah, BuLba, can you introduce yourself for people that may or may not know who you are?
I am BuLba. I am currently coach of Shopify Rebellion. So we got the new org recently. Yeah, I guess I've been around in the Dota scene for a while now. So I've been playing Dota 2 since it came out, I think. Like at least when it became public. And then the first, yeah, I've been playing Dota 1 as well for a long time. So I just love Dota, I love the game. Don't really have much else in my life besides Dota. So
That's okay. That's the same
It's
for
gonna
a
be a
lot of
short
us.
episode. That's good.
yeah, yeah. So
Okay, so usually in the guest episodes, what we do is we talk about your life, which apparently will exclusively be Dota, but we'll see if that's actually true or not.
I mean, I have other stuff. But
Can you
yeah,
talk
go ahead.
about your early life? Anything interesting of note before getting into gaming, perhaps?
Okay, I mean, what can I be? Before Dota, I did want to follow like I guess it was like just follow the mold of being a good Indian son and becoming a doctor. So
Of course.
I uh I was I think that was my aspirations for like most of my life in the start. Just like my motivation was to like get a good job because when you're like growing up in like I guess it's for like some families, but for mine like my parents really wanted me because they came from India. So and being a doctor it's like obviously like the prized academic thing, and academia was very very important for me growing up. So I was like in all the before Dota, honestly, I was like my favorite thing was actually trivia. So I used to always love competition. So I used to be like on the school's like quiz bowl team and stuff. Like I used to go to
Mm.
tournaments and stuff in high school. Um, and I used to love Jeopardy. I remember like there was this quiz bowl tournament where I went to like Chicago in like I think when I was in junior in high school. So that was like so long ago, and I met like my one of my idols back then. His name was like Ken Jennings. So he was like this legend that won like, and one of my friends on my quiz bowl team was friends with him. So like those were the kind of idols I had. Like a lot of them growing up were like these super nerdy
That's
like
that's the guy
dudes.
that got like unbelievable scores on Jeopardy, right? He won like a
Yeah,
million
he was a
times in a row.
beast. He was really funny, like personality wise. He's like the host now, I think. So
Yeah.
he was really popular, and then he was like there just like as a special thing. So before, yeah, that was a lot of academia, a lot of school, a lot of like
Not
video.
to interrupt, BuLba, but you said you love doing trivia. I just want to tell people here, he came up with the worst fucking trivia questions for later that I've ever. Jesus Christ! What is the deal,
I
bro?
thought you were coming up with them. I misread or something. I didn't know
It's
I'm
okay.
coming up with them.
All right, continue your story. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was basically most of my. I have like I'm a single child, so I didn't have like brothers or sisters growing up. Um, but that was like honestly most. I mean, like I still played video games and stuff back then. Like I think I started playing like some of the Blizzard games as well as like you know the games like StarCraft and I didn't really play Valve games back then, but mostly like the Blizzard games. And then that was always like I was always hiding when I was playing. Like at least I had to like my parents to like were like worried, like I'm gonna go meet some random person online because that was back when like online
Mm,
stuff was like super new. So I
yeah.
remember back then like my parents were like there are all the articles on news where all these kids like that are just getting like poached, taken, and I don't know why I'm smiling saying that, but yeah. I'm just looking at Cinderen's face and I'm just like smiling, sorry. But yeah. So my parents like, were like
Sure.
they were like pretty protective, of like, they don't want me like, so I had to always keep, and then obviously like they didn't really want me to play um a lot of games. So that was most of my high school, and then I went off to college, and I think that was when I started playing a lot more. Obviously, I went to like UNC Chapel Hill. It's like I was going for pre-med, so it was like pretty try hard, first two
UNC is
years.
a hardcore school, right?
Yeah, I mean
For the people that don't know.
their med school was really good. Like my dream schools back then were like probably Duke or UNC. I was like a big fan of the North Carolina schools. So, but Duke was like insanely expensive, and UNC was like I think Yeah, it was my second choice, and then I went there. I studied there, and that was like when Dota 1 was still going on. So for first 2 years, Dota 1, it was still Dota 1. I was playing casually. I was definitely playing way more than at home because I had my own like. I remember I even like asked my parents like for a single dorm. Like everyone got like roommates. I didn't want a roommate. I just wanted to like play Dota 1, and just like and I hate to say it back then, just talk a bunch of shit on TeamSpeak. That was it back then. So
Yeah.
I don't think my parents would be okay with hearing whatever
Well,
language I was saying, but
I'm sure you were also quite disgusting back then as well. You've
we all
changed a
were.
lot since then, of course.
Yeah, so that was the Dota 1 days. Like back then, like I just played a lot. I think I got pretty decent. I think in NA at least. I didn't play like a lot of like I didn't travel to any lands. Like I have a funny story about TI1, which is kind of depressing. But
Well, hold
sorry,
on to that. We got to go in
I don't know.
order here. TI1's a
Sorry,
little jumping the gun. So, how much of
sorry.
Dota 1 did you play though at this point?
I remember playing like ICS, IDC, like some of these big in-house leagues. I remember Cinder in there. I remember a lot of like these are old Dota 1 names. Like some of them are still retained, like Puppy and Kuro, but there's like, PGGs and like some random people like Garter, and like I'm just trying to remember like all these people, but these are the kind of
NS.
yeah. And when I finally got vouched, like back then you had to get vouched to these leagues, like IHCS, IDEC, like getting vouched was like an honor badge. Like, it's like like you're just wearing this badge like shit, I'm just fucking vouched. It's like a huge like ego boost back then. So everyone like there was like these forums and you used to like apply to get vouched. So when I got my like I think the big league back then, like there was one in NA that was really popular. Like this was on like Garena where like everyone played and it was like called like I think IHCS or something. And then
ICS. There was an
yeah,
ICS2 as well, which was lower.
yeah. So that one was really big. That was on like on BattleNet itself, and then they evolved that into like IDEC, which was like the European one on like MIRC. So everyone used MIRC. That was like my first foray into it, and I remember like getting like I thought I was like player wise, I was like I thought I was really like good back then relatively to the players in NA at least. I didn't know how good I was to the Europeans. Like I played versus them, but back then like you had to play on like super high ping on IDEC, especially for the Americans. Like and some of those guys like props to them. I think like Fear and stuff like played on like super high ping on these big teams and they were winning too, like MYM. So you can imagine like Fear's playing on like insanely high ping to like on a European team and like shitting on kids, back then.
Mhm.
So that guy was a legend.
On that
So
little baby table that he used to play on.
yeah, like he was a god. So back then, and then I remember every time I came back from class and stuff, like this was even still in high school. Like I used to just watch replays of all the big names, like the big teams, like MYM, um, VP. There's like some so many different teams back then. Like all the Dendy Ukraine teams and Russian teams. Like I remember. So that was like literally my life. Like, and I think it kind of became my obsession after like trivia. Like
Mhm.
trivia and quiz bowl and all that. Like I used to really like study a lot and spend a lot. Like that was my eventual like love. So I never really loved like what I was doing in school. I just kind of did it as a chore. Like I used to just be able to like and I think I kind of half-assed it most of my like high school and stuff. And college was definitely harder. Like I have to go take like organic chem 2 and I've like I haven't read any of the textbook. I've been playing like Dota all day. I go and take some exam. Like that was it was rough, but eventually that was like that was like my Dota 1. And finally like the end of Dota 1, like I got like my favorite possession was like I got to play in like this tournament called like MYM Prime Nations. I'm sure this is
I
like still
remember
on
this.
YouTube.
I remember
And
this.
MYM Prime Nations was like the World Cup back then of like
Yeah.
of similar World Cup. It was like there was like two big tournaments like MYM Prime Defending and then MYM Prime Nations. MYM Prime Defending was like super elite. Like all the teams played, like getting in the tier one. Like it was on like some website. I think Ghost of Gamers, like Fragster also had it. Like some German website. And I think like MYM Prime Nations was like all the players that represented their nation. So I had like an NA, like basically Fear had randomly asked me to make an NA team with them. I think, and it was like Fear, me, and Jimmy. Actually, Fear and Jimmy asked me. So Fear and Jimmy asked me,
So
and I was
Jimmy's demon.
yeah,
Just
Demon,
for
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, so Demon back then. So Demon was also like insane legend. Like Demon was like mechanically back then, like at that time in Dota 1 was like top 3 in the world, I thought. Outside of China, like mechanically this guy was like fucking insane. So Jimmy and Fear like asked me, and I worked really hard. I got like my name on like the top of the ranks in house league. So it was just like how it is even happens now. Like you get high MMR. I
Mhm.
was high rank. I played with them. They thought I had like potential. I was like playing like mid back then. I was like always a very playmaking player mid. Like I that was like the way I like to play. Like played like stuff like Clockwork mid and Rubik mid and random like Disruptor mid and stuff. So those are my favorite materials, like random ass stuff just to run around and kill people on the map. And then Jimmy and Fear asked me to play. I think I was like one of the happiest days of my life. I remember. And then we kind of had to build a team, and I think like we got PowerNet as our carry.
Yeah.
I think yeah, he was playing carry. So this guy was like
He was good.
he was really fucking good. Like he was like a star as well. Like he was like Arteezy, like the original
Mhm.
Arteezy. So he was like really good at farming. He was a really good like player laner. So that was like PowerNet, and then he joined, and then our last guy was like some guy called Hyalua. I think he was just like so we just needed someone like, and he played support well. Do you remember this guy?
Yeah, I remember. I remember all these names. I'm just trying to remember. Hyalua never played in anything in Dota 2, right?
No, he quit.
But I
He
remember
he
the name.
He was like, I don't think his parents let him play. I think he played
Right.
Dota 1. He played that tournament. We won. So anyways, we made this team like, and we're like playing versus like Ukraine and Russia and stuff. And it's like, and like back then, like the best nations that played in this, like, because it didn't include China, but I
Mhm.
think sometimes like Singapore played and stuff, but they would play in like 300 freaking ping, and then they would lose.
Mhm.
So, but I think Denmark was insane. They had like Jacob's stack, like Milk's stack.
It
They
was
usually
Milk Mania, Pusher
Pusher
Street,
Street.
maybe at the time. I think.
Yeah,
Did Miggle play with him yet, or was that was
yes,
probably he did?
right. And Angel
Was
played.
Angel also on that team? Okay.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was. So Angel was on that team. So those guys were like Danish legends. Russia had like Vigos, and like Ukraine had like Dendy's team, which is like
Mhm.
Dendy, God Black, DK Phobos. Trying to remember two more.
It's actually kind of cool how a lot of the old school, so like when you compare the regions and you talk about these people, I think the really old school, both Russian and Ukrainian players, a lot of the ones that really paved the way are talent now. Like they haven't like faded away. A lot of the big NA players from the past maybe don't really interact with Dota 2 at all. They never really did. But in the big Russian players back then, so Vegas moved on. I think he became a pro in poker, I believe.
Oh,
PGG is still talent. NS is still talent. It was PGG and NS were two of the big ones, right?
yeah.
Then there was Light of Heaven on that team? Maybe?
Wasn't Light
Was
of
that too
Heaven
early?
Russia?
Yeah, was that too early for Light of Heaven?
No, he
Because
was
the
still
reason he
playing. No,
became
Light
big
of
in
he was still playing, but he was like just a pub star. Like he was
yeah,
not on any teams. I remember like
it
people
was
kind
probably
of like
Ars Art then.
people thought he was like really weird. I remember because he had this quote where he would just say
Indigo
like,
Child.
yeah, like he used to just be like super like flamey too in all the games. So people used to
Called
be
himself
afraid
an
to play
Indigo
with him.
Child.
Yeah.
Were you flamey back then?
I mean, when I played with like the noobs, yeah, but when I played with these like I mean, Cinderin was on that list, by the way. Like
Oh,
Cinderin
the
was
noob
on that.
list.
No, he was on like the high tier list. Like Cinderin had like among the players back then, like he had his like own team. I thought he was really good back then. I'm
The
not.
Night
I don't know how
Stalker
you are now,
mids.
but
Didn't
yeah,
we all?
yeah. So Cinderin was a beast. I'll be honest. Like people don't know this, but Cinderin used to own in that league. He was like top 5, top 10 in a lot of the tournaments, and he used to captain too. So back then, like people used to challenge each other. Like it was like
Oh
big,
yeah,
like
yeah.
so you used to win, and like it was like talk shit. You challenge this guy in the league. Everyone types like dash sign. There's so much freaking beef going on. Everyone's on TeamSpeak. Everyone's like 50 people in one channel, and they're all just like talking shit about each other, and then they challenge, and then the game. Everyone's watching the game. You know, and
Yeah.
like people like didn't even stream back then. I don't know how the hell we watched games. How did we watch games back then? Do you remember?
Yeah, I don't know actually.
I think just replays actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I suppose.
replays and Ghost of Gamers comments. That was like the original Reddit,
Yeah.
right?
Is this like
The
2008 or something?
OG fiend.
Yeah, it's like 2007, 8, 6 days, dude. Like holy shit, that's like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it's hardcore.
That was like when George Bush was president.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
before The Obama
Yeah, that's
days.
exactly what I was thinking. That's also how I like remember the year.
Yeah,
It's who was
George Bush.
president.
Yeah, that's literally what I do.
So
So-
Dota 1, okay, when Dota 2 is announced, where are you? What are you doing? What's your reaction?
Well, we had
And
just
what
finished
happened
the
with your degree, actually? We didn't finish that. You just dropped out of school?
No, I have a funny story about that
Okay.
one too. So, MYM Prime Nations finishes. We win the tournament somehow, and I at that point my like my ego was like whew, like we were all like we thought like we're hot as shit, and then I was like my second year of college, right? First and second year. So I was like you know, doing this while still doing classes at UNC. So, pre-med classes. So my third year was when Dota got announced, right? Dota 1. And then this was like very soon, Dota 2, right after MY and Prime Nations, like a few months later. Because like people were still playing like Dota 1, like when Dota 2 was like released, like people didn't like Dota 2 at the start. I remember I didn't like people were talking shit. I remember like a lot of the players back then were like we were hanging on TeamSpeak, be like, this is a scam. Like we didn't know what Valve was, a lot of us, Like I didn't even think it was real. There's so many times like we were scammed by tournaments and sponsors. Like at that point, like we were like the world is just out to get us. You have all these people like we didn't believe in it. We're like $1 million for Dota. At that point, like I realized like also school wise, like before that, like after I finished Prime, like my parents came to me and like this can't be a profession, right? You're gonna go. I'm like yeah, like I'm not gonna play this. Like I'm not gonna like get a future out of this. I'm just in this for fun. It's my hobby after classes. That's it. And then
And during
Dota,
classes, of course.
yeah, Dota 2 came out, and then I was actually in India for a trip, and I had like a vacation plan because at that time, like I was going to like sometimes India, like with my family to visit my relatives and stuff, at that trip, and that was when like 5 months before, and then Fear had asked me like to play with his like team, which was like OK Nirvana, okay, and then I ended up first off like I was going on this India trip and my parents like didn't like were like not sure about this at all. Like, what is this? Already the plane was so I ended up going to the stupid trip. And I'm like copying
Oh.
myself the entire trip, like this isn't even real. What is this? I end up casting the freaking tournaments with like with Draskell on like Neo Dota, if you remember this website on like
Really?
NA
Wow.
Dota. Yeah, I remember casting. I was just massively depressed. Like I'm in my summer
Oh my
watching
god.
this, and I think like Fear needed like a replacement back the time. The team was like Pycat, Fear, Lacoste, and then they got Theban and Universe as like Theban was like the replacement. And back then there was no rules, like everyone just played whatever, like it
Mhm.
was not like super like there was not like maybe the mids were like the ones that were brown, the side lanes like there were random ass lanes, like it was chaos, so there was no like safe lane or off lane or bullshit, so back then it was just like whatever. Like I remember when a first team did aggro tri lane, which was like some Chinese team, eHome I think, in some year, like they went aggro, like it was like mind boggling, like holy fuck, they just put 3 heroes in one lane. I remember like Ghost Gamers comment, this is mind breaking, So, um, like I was in shock when I saw it, but at the time, finally we finished, and like I'm watching Dota 2, like the thing, and I'm like, and I think Deben ends up playing with them, and I watch it all, and then they tell me after how legit it is, and all I care about that next year was like I want to go to TI2 like as a player. Like I messed up totally. Like I was so depressed, like and I saw how big it was, and that was like so that year, my junior year of college, I like I dropped out for that semester. Didn't tell my parents. Told them I got an internship
Oh.
at a lab.
Oh my god.
Okay, they paid for my apartment, which was like and I wanted to pay them back, and I made some money, so I helped pay a little bit, but and I couldn't afford like a lot. I was like broke ass college kid, and then I'm like I needed to do this. I'm like whatever, like I'm gonna end up trying my hardest, blah blah blah. So I go to this apartment. I just play Dota all day, all night. When my parents come, like I have stuff printed, acting like I'm doing homework and stuff. Um, so I'm just like, and then I make it. I think I end up joining EG. I got an offer to like join EG with like Jimmy and Fear and Demon Fear Milk, and I brought Universe and I were on a previous team. We were on like a team called It's Gosu, and basically it's Gosu was the team, and we were on it, and then I think it had like Korok and like painted gold and stuff. Like
Yeah.
Oh,
it was
wow.
like a bunch of my goons, like all our friends. Like we had a lot of fun playing. We really liked each other. Like we all like were Dota 1 friends that became into Dota 2. Like we were like, and MYM asked me and Sahil to join. And Sahil was like my best friend back then. Like Sahil, Universe and I were like Demon used to always call like an Indian duo. Like we were like inseparable. Like I was really good friends with him back then. And then we ended up talking to each other, and we thought we were the two best players on that team. And then EG asked both of us to EG asked me and him to come play 5. So I think Jacob played 4 back then. I don't know what the fuck Jacob played. I think Jacob was like role jungle actually. He didn't play a lane. He just picked Joe Chan and went to jungle from minute 1. So and then yeah, that was it. And then TI2, and then TI2 I did not do we did not do that well. So I don't know if I'm cutting ahead of the story, but
No,
we
by all
ended up
means.
qualifying. No, we all ended up qualifying to TI2, and I was so happy. Like we qualified like through the points. Like back then, like there were some teams that had back then the invites were so hype because like Valve just like randomly in some day in like May or June or July, like they would just release the invites on Dota 2. There was a countdown, and like you prayed to God you're invited. There was no points. There was nothing. Like it was based on how well you did, right? And it was their own judgment. So there was a
Arbitrary
lot.
system. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So there was a lot of like hype around invites. Like you don't know who it was. Some teams like got like I remember they got super like fucked over in the invites. I remember some like there was a lot of drama. Some teams like the invites were really good. Like we ended up getting invited. So I was super happy when I saw that. Like I was like, and that was like when my year was ending. And then after that year, I ended up like TI2. I didn't end up doing like amazing. Like I was playing mid back then, and I remember playing versus like all the Western mids, and like they were all like the only mid that was really good in the West back then was like Dendi and G. I think those are the only two.
Yeah.
Every other mid was like pretty bad, I thought. So
Was Cindering
We all-
still a mid at that point?
I wasn't great.
yeah, and
I got rolled by Dendi.
Yeah,
at
yeah,
TI
we all-
too,
yeah.
I remember.
yeah, we all practiced with each other. Like we all played with each other, and the mids were all like, and we never got to play versus the Asian teams. So like the Chinese and Southeast Asians at that point, I had not played versus like one of the godly. Like at that time, like I used to call it like the mid gods of China were like Super, Ferrari. Those were like the two best. Like Super and Ferrari were the guys I watched like most of their replays. Like, Super had like my favorite hero back then was my favorite mid time was Storm Spirit and Tinker.
Of
Okay,
course.
so it's
Yeah.
Storm and
Comes full
Tinker.
circle. Yeah.
Right. So Super had the best Storm. Like his Storm was freaking godly. So I used to watch like all his replays to understand
Oh,
like
yeah.
how he played Storm. You remember
Back
DK
then,
Super?
buyback had no cooldown, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
had these insane Chinese games with super, like buying back and defending base like 3 lives in a row and
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Oh my
And,
god,
and
I
it was
remember those.
hard. And Bat Rider, for example, was super busted. So Super was like the king of like DK, Storm, and Bat, like the 3 godly mids. Right? I think Bat was a mid or offlaner. Forgot. But DK and Storm were the 2 best. Right?
Yeah.
Because like DK was the only hero that countered Storm back then. I remember. Like,
Mhm.
because like people didn't know how to land stuns back then. There was not so many silences. Now all the heroes are like freaking power creeped. But back then, like Storm, whatever Storm could do, like Super abused the fuck out of it. And the Storm in Dota 1 was cool. Cool as fuck. Remember the Sint? The Storm.
Yeah, the Storm Panda.
Yeah. So
Was it Ragin, I think?
yeah, region.
Yeah.
So finally, like, and then I ended up like TI2. We ended up owning the groups. You can check like TI2 wiki. Like we ended up, and I think the 2 mids we lost to like the 2 Chinese teams. Like we ended up losing to DK. They had Super. I think I actually ended up playing versus freaking Burning mid. And people were playing this stupid Morphling mid. I remember back then, like
Oh.
at that TI. And
Yeah.
my favorite mid heroes were like Storm and Tinker and Invoker. And Tinker was permaban versus me, like, because I think like at the time, like I did some March of the Machine shit, and like ended up beating Navi earlier that year, and then like that was like my like everyone thought like BuLba like all he likes is playing Tinker, so Tinker just was banned, and Tinker was broken as fuck because March like went through Ancients, and then I ended up playing like finally we got to that, and then we make winner bracket, super hyped. We play IG. Okay, so the IG is like they have like Ferrari, right? So I'm like, and the thing about me as a player, I definitely like got into my head. I look back at like as a coach, I look back like the 4 years and I like look at all the things I did bad as a player. you know, like because like this has made me a lot more introspective. Like all the stupid shit, all the dumb shit, all my mistakes as a player, I look back and like because I see it, like happen, right? And I'm like, it's not exactly the same, but I see like I have way more clarity about it. So back then, like I used to get way more in my head about all these things, like and like I used to care a lot about what people think about me, a lot. And I'm like playing in front of the stage, like all these NA fans are there. First time I'm playing in front of a stage, and then I play with freaking Fari, and he fucking hits on me, and he's playing like TA, and I'm playing like Quaso X Invoker,
I
and I don't,
remember this. Oh
and
no.
and I got massacred.
Holy shit, you got
And the thing about me is like I was talking a lot of shit. I was like very public back then because I was out. And the thing is when you're talking shit and when you're like when you think you're the hot shit and back then people were like actually like they were praising me. It's not like now, people are praising me back then. and then and then when you really care a lot about that stuff and then when like people just like the entire NA community were just like the meme BuLba Invoker, and then that game, like in that entire series, I got massacred, and then like my team, like I remember, like like they weren't happy about my performance mid, and the thing is that matchup was freaking hard. Like TA was freaking busted. Like now I look like what should I've done, but I had no idea what to do in that freaking lane. I got massacred, and that was like also I'm like first time I have to play with a freaking Chinese player, like and he does all these like tricks and stuff that back then like the Western players did not do, like all these tricks to the lane. So I learned a lot from that loss, I remember. And then I ended up getting kicked. That was my first kick. Like a big meme in NA Dota. I remember like Jimmy made like some Twitch video, like BuLba, like the kick video. It was all fun and games. Look back, but
They made a video about you being kicked.
it was like a meme. Like there was like a boot at like my face, like not a video, like a picture, like
Oh.
NA Dota. Like there was a picture of a boot and my face at the end with like my hat on. I just like freaking like the kick, and then it was just spammed everywhere. So I lost like I was like freaking super demoralized,
So
and then I ended up getting kicked.
that was your first taste of like public perception, how that can affect your psyche, right? I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
assume.
But I took it in full swing. Like I was still really motivated, and at that time, like after TI2 ended, my parents were like, "So you didn't end up winning, you know?"
Okay, so they
What
at
happened?
least knew you went to the tournament. You weren't lying that hard.
Yeah, yeah. After that, they ended up finding out. I told
He
them. I
told them
didn't.
the tournament was in the lab.
No, no. The thing is, I didn't tell them the lag thing, like lab thing, a few years later. Like they didn't find out about the lab till like after. Like I didn't. The lab at that time, like
So they still thought you went to the lab and then you were just also really good at Dota.
yeah, exactly. I had to like
Oh my god.
Okay, so
Okay.
I had to like so make it a little bit special. Finally, that tournament ended up I bombed out, and then we ended up like getting like 12th place or whatever, and then I needed to go back to school because I couldn't like take so many breaks. I could take like a year break, right? But more than 1 year break, I'm gonna get unenrolled, and I did not want to be like not have a degree, So after all like the work I put in for like the first 10 like in high school and stuff, like I didn't want to like just drop out. So I ended up like finishing college that semester while also playing like pro at for TI3. So
Wow.
so I ended up getting my degree. It was like it wasn't I didn't end up getting like the like ended up going to medical school or anything, but I did end up getting my undergrad. So that was nice.
What exactly is your degree? Like bachelor's in what?
I got a double major, so biology
Jesus
and
Christ.
political science.
What the fuck? Jesus Christ.
But
Too smart, BuLba.
the political science one was just like the meme degree, back then. No offense to any political science majors.
My
out
brother
there,
has a
but
master's in political science. Thank you very much.
yeah,
Well,
but
clearly everybody does by the sounds of it. So
I mean, I just wanted it so it looked good on my resume, like double major, But originally I wanted to do chem and bio, but that was like chemistry was like freaking. I couldn't do that in Dota. I could do biology in Dota, but not like chemistry and biology in Dota. Like that would have just like probably died of stress. Then I ended up graduating, and then that summer, I ended up graduating. Or I what happened was I made TI3. I postponed my graduation, so I got the December graduation. So I still have my graduation picture wearing my little freaking gown with my like. So and then TI3 was the tournament where it was like my big thing, like my that year, like I ended up like switching roles too. But back then, it's like what I was telling earlier. Like you don't have roles in Dota back then. Like I was playing mid and freaking off lane, and I was playing safe lane too. Like sometimes, like you just played like stuff back then. Like your offlaner used to be like offlane nakes and shit. Used to just like play offlane lifestealer and stuff.
Oh yeah, we
So,
did that too. I
yeah.
remember that.
So and TI3 was like my big one, like because that after that year, my sole thing that entire year was to get revenge on freaking EG. Like I really wanted to like shit on EG. Like that was all I cared about. Like because they like kind of humiliated me after like the TI2.
You just said you took it in stride. Now you can't stand them and you want to beat them. Which one
Well,
is
I'm
it?
using it for motivate. I mean, I took like the whatever.
I understand.
Yeah. So TI3 was like, a big debut the tournament for me. I think I ended up playing pretty well like that tournament even in the groups, but we didn't like have the best performance like still, but we considering like our team was pretty ragtag like after like the NA team, like I still wanted to stay in NA, and I at the time, like I'll be honest, like Europe was not like, besides Navi, I think Europe was like not that good, right? So it was
Yeah,
like
especially Synderen's team.
And
yeah,
so
it was
your team at TI3 was Team Tinker that became Team Liquid, right? Or am I mistaken?
no,
here?
it was
No,
just
I'm
Team
mixing things
Liquid.
up. Team Tinker was the year after.
Yeah, Team Tinker was
Right.
after Team
So
Liquid.
Liquid was TI3. What was your roster?
It was like Korok, Fluff and Stuff, myself, Ix, Mike, and TC. So
Oh,
like
that's right. Yeah.
the only good Europe.
TC, my boy.
Yeah. So we were like, I thought we were the best Western team outside of Navi. I thought we were like, the other team was like Fnatic, but we generally beat them. So, and that was those guys. They had freaking like No-Tail and Tal and stuff. So, but and Hani and stuff. So those like back then the Western scene was like, besides Navi, was definitely not like at all close to how it is now. Like the Chinese teams and Asian teams were way better. So like a lot of us older players, like I think we definitely like have a lot of respect for the Chinese teams. Like at least I do. Because growing up and stuff and watching Dota, like those were my idols. Like at the time, like I really looked up to those guys. And then TI3, we ended up doing well. I had my Clockwork game. I was like, I think I conquered a lot of my like stuff that year too. Like I kind of stayed low. I stopped like being so much in like the public. I worked a lot harder, and
Stop talking
I
shit.
tried. Yeah. So, and that was and then TI3 ended up, doing pretty well. And then after that, I got like, after TI2, I didn't get many offers. After TI3, I had a lot of offers. Like a lot of people wanted to play with me and think about making a team. I think in retrospect, I definitely did the worst one, but obviously it's all hindsight. I think like I kind of left my boys. Like I think TC back then was like a really like good teammate. Like he was probably one of the best teammates I've ever had. Korok was like very, very individually skilled, and we all like kind of had good thing. And I think both times I realized, like I look back, like I left, like same when I had the Universe Korok team. Um, like we had a lot of fun. We were doing well, and we were like able to talk a lot with each other and stuff. And I kind of left both times for like maybe names, big names at the
Oh,
time.
you did that again a few years later, so you didn't learn your lesson with DC.
Whatever.
We'll get to that, of course. Yeah.
Shut up. And then yeah, so after that I ended up ditching. Again, this is the second time I ended up ditching. Like, oh yeah, TI3 ended. Actually, wait, no, there's so much freaking. I forgot like an entire gap, dude. TI3 to TI4. That was like when were the best any team, and then our tour came up. Remember? I don't know.
Yeah.
And that was like we didn't have that good of a year. I think I stayed on Liquid. Yeah, we stayed. But we ended up like kicking IX Mike. I think that was what happened. We kicked IX Mike and we kicked Korok. Actually, I don't know why we kicked Korok. I don't remember. He was actually really good. We ended up kicking him for Koikva. But Koikva was also freaking good. Like, so Koikva was like the mini bulldog, right? Back then. Like at TI3 he played like all the broken, like he played really
Bone
well.
Furion.
Yeah, I think he was on like Mouse Sports on Kuroki's team, and I remember
That was my team.
Were you on that team at TI3?
Mouse TI3. Mouse TI2 was the one with Kuro as a stand-in. TI3 Mouse was me, Fata, Koikva, Pass, and who am I forgetting?
Kuro.
No. I've never played in a team with Kuro. I've played one event with Kuro as a stand-in.
Wait, who was your 5?
TI3, I was
RMN?
5.
Oh, who was your offlaner? Koikva, Fata mid. Who was your carry?
Black, that's right.
Oh shit.
So,
Wait,
yeah.
Kuro was
And
on that
Pass was
team for a bit, right?
So Kuro played with Mouse at TI2. That was the Sing Sing Theban one, I think.
Yeah.
And they got like, what was it? There was some sort of last. I'm trying to remember how it was they got in, or maybe they didn't quite make it out of wildcards or something like that. But Kuro did play a TI with Mouse, and I think that was
Yeah.
TI2. Anyway,
Okay, yeah, you're right. They didn't do that well. Then TI3, you were on the team. And then I took Quakefa
oh,
off your team after. I was like, I was a big Quakefa fan.
there was no team after. You didn't take anyone.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
They
whatever.
were all free to go, I think.
So,
We were.
but that team when we lost Ix, Mike, and I think we brought way too sexy, and then we brought Quakefa instead of Korok. Like, our team got way worse. I think Fluff and Way Too were like both captains. So like, that was like they used to argue a lot, and I think that was when I think that was when Fluff ended up like having that blog and stuff. I remember that yeah. So, I mean, Fluff was like a really good captain. I think he was like the first real captain I played with. I mean, Jacob was one, but the thing about Fluff was like he was very like motivational and like a very uplifting guy too. So he was like also a very nice person, and he was like a hard worker. So I remember like TI3, like that guy was like he was such a big part of that team. So yeah, now he's like some insanely well off like what's it called?
I think he's a day trader, right? He
Yeah,
does
day trader.
investments.
Yeah, he's like
Yeah.
he has like his own book or something, or like he goes to like all these what is it, like meetings and stuff in Vegas. I don't know, when I see his pictures, and I've spoken to a little bit after, and I've talked to other people, like I've spoken to Mike and stuff, but Fluff definitely found a lot of success after. Um, so he was a really good captain, I remember. And then, but yeah, that year we had a lot of struggles with the team, and then our team did not go well, and then we ended up like doing some random roster changes. I ended up with like Demon, myself, Way Too, Quakefa, and I think that was my TI4 team. So I ended up like that year I changed my position again. I went from playing mid to like all three lanes into like playing support at TI because like I don't know why I played support random. I think like I just wanted to play support because I felt like I could lead more. I became more of like I think at that year I became more of became more of a leader because I think Fluff left the team. So I think like I kind of felt like I had to do more of like the drafting and leadership on that team. So we ended up I ended up becoming like drafter and leader for that team. And then we had a really good TI group stages actually. Like that was like the freaking crazy group stage though. TI4 groups, like that was like the intense one. Like everything was best of one.
Oh,
And like it was really close. Like the group stage was probably the most intense group stages ever of any TI. Because every game was best of one. And you played versus every team. So we ended up playing versus like newbie, and we beat them. We ended up beating like all the good teams, but we lost to like we lost to freaking Mouse Sports. I remember that was sad. We lost to like Arrow
wait, who
Gaming.
was on Mouse TI4?
Fada, MSS was on that team. Um, who else was on it?
Man, I cannot remember this roster for the
Pycat,
life of me.
Pycat was on it.
Oh,
Remember?
yeah. No, it's
Forgot the
starting to ring a bell.
offlaner. I think MSS was the offlaner actually. Yeah, he was. So it was MSS, Fada, Pycat were the cores.
Hmm.
And I totally forgot their supports. I have no idea. So we ended up losing to them, and then we also lost to like Arrow. So we lost to like some of the lower teams, and then we beat like the really good teams. But then there was like some crazy like system after like we were like tiebreakers, all that shit. We ended up losing. That was a really hard loss because I remember that team like it was like first time where I felt like I had more of a strategy, and then we kind of did some things that were different than most of the teams back then. So um, in TI4, we ended up like not doing like we got like ninth or 12th, same one as TI2, and then after that is when I like kind of left the NA boys. Like I left Team Liquid, which I kind of regret. Like I think Team Liquid was probably like one of the best orgs I've been with. Like even though back then the org was not as big, it was like just the forum plus like Victor, you know,
Hmm.
and he was a really good CEO, like probably like one of the best CEOs I worked with, and he was like that was a really good org. Like they really cared about the players and making the team better and stuff. And they just had a very family oriented. And I ended up like leaving for like that was when the Team Tinker and it was like a subsidiary of EG, and EG was part of like Alliance,
Yeah, that's right.
Team Tinker, and all owned by the same thing. And the money and all that went up. I think that was when like Dota started becoming more like, like all the salaries went up too, as
After
well.
TI3, it exploded quite a bit.
Yeah, so that was when like before like salaries were like I remember like in my first week, even the first year was like $100, $200 per month or something. So and then it was like I don't remember the numbers, but it was definitely more. Like it was like in the thousands then. The all most of like the higher tier teams, and we had a good deal, and we ended up making like a super team with like PyCat, Sing Sing, myself, and EGM, and then
EGM. I don't remember that. Wow.
Koikfa. This was Team
Hmm.
Tinker.
Yeah.
So we had like a lot of like the popular players.
Wait, wasn't this the sketchy? I say sketchy, where everybody like moved to North America. There was a big drama about region swapping and all that shit. That was like
No,
the
we
first
weren't.
big instance or something like that.
That was later on. That was like
Oh,
Mouse Sports. Like we
okay.
Team Tinker ended up becoming Mouse Sports. Right.
That's right.
So
Okay.
yeah. So Team Tinker was like that team. Yeah, we like sucked. I was also like I was like I became like I think that was when I started becoming like look back like as a player, and I started becoming like a lot lazier. Like I used to work a lot harder, and I think that year I don't know what happened, but I just became a lot lazier. I started playing like other games, just not playing that much Dota, and I was playing like super bad. Like I was like I had switched from like 2 to 3, and then to 4 at TI4, and then to 5 on Team Tinker because EGM played 4, and I was a freaking bad 5. Like I had no idea what I was doing because 5 was just a different role than anything else. Like you have to buy wards and sentries and know all that shit, and I was freaking god awful at that role. So.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what to do in lane because like playing the off lane and mid, then playing like 5 position safe lane, like I was freaking feeding my ass out. So I had no idea what I was doing, and that team was like bad, like we were destined. And I definitely think I did like I look back like I'm trying to be more like self like whatever last years, and I look back like what the fuck was I doing? So I try to like sometimes like say stories about this like to, like sometimes my players like the last years like what the fuck I did wrong, because
Mm.
it's all through experience, right? I became a lazy fuck that year, so like I still want to like punch myself in the face for that, and I think that became a lot worse as a player that year, after TI4, and then there was like some random iterations. That team we just kept changing rosters. It was like the whole like you change rosters like every month. Like back then everyone used to do it. There was no roster lock and stuff, you know. And our team like were bad. Like we had a bunch of egos. Like no one really wanted to listen. We had like way too much like star powers. Like it was all these like hot-headed people. Like it was definitely not how to make a good team. 101, and we ended up like crushing out that year. I didn't even qualify to so that was the first TI where after TI1 where I didn't make it as a player. Like that was when I ended up getting like Mouse Sports. We went to like with Black to Toronto. Phil was our manager, and we ended up losing to like freaking Swindle Melons. I remember like these like back then like the Dota. I'll be honest, like back then like there was definitely a sense of like inferiority towards the Han players, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Oh yeah.
Dota 1 players like did not think these guys were good. Like we all are like these guys are shit, like everyone, like I'll be honest. I thought so too.
Can you
So that
quickly? Can we hold off?
sorry, I'm
Why
just going.
why is that? Because I remember that being a thing as well. Was it just because they're coming from another? Like, could it have been any game? Could it have been League? And it would have been the same. I feel like Han is
might be
pretty
even
close
worse.
to Han. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But Han is like relatively close to Dota. Ice Frog
mean,
worked on it. And like, what was the hate for exactly?
I mean, the thing is like the Han players, they had a lot of personality. I don't know what it is about that game.
It was very NA based. So that's probably why.
Yeah, they had those guys came in, they were talking a lot of shit. I remember like
Okay, fair enough.
all those guys, they were also talking a lot of shit. Like,
Yeah.
Moon Meander, he had just come, he started streaming. He's like, these Dota 1 players are shit, I'm gonna beat them. Kyle, PPD, I remember PPD, that was like, his first year. Like, Zai was super chill. He had also switched. That's when like a big influx of like no till and fly. But no till and fly, I think they switched like a little bit earlier than some of the others.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Swindle
like
and
no
them came later for sure.
yeah. Like so, no tail and fly, like and Hani, that was like the TI3 Fnatic team. Like those guys were legends of Han. So no till and Tao were like back then they were like also those guys were a lot different than the NA Han players. Like no till like that Fnatic team was like the most like lovable like team ever. I remember like that was like I did a lot of first things with that team. Like I remember Hani and Kai back then, Notil, Tao. Like I became a lot of good like those were like the friendly days of LANs because people really socialized. There was no practice rooms. So like at TIs and these tournaments, there were no practice rooms. Like now, like you'll see all the teams and players hold up in the room. Back then, you were forced to like socialize or AFK in your room.
Yeah, I mean
So now,
that's one of the downsides of having things actually blow up and become more professional is you lose some of these aspects, right?
yeah,
Which is too bad.
And before that, keep in mind, like I was an like super antisocial, like Indian, like freaking fat nerd, still am, but whatever, like even more to that extent. And then these guys are kind of teaching me a lot about like that was like when I first like went to parties and all that stuff. So I had like no idea what was happening, and I was very new to all this. But those guys were like super fun. I remember like, but some of them like I remember Moon was like a big shit talker, Kyle. So, and then obviously like some of the NA players like we didn't want to like lose like our. So that year like we ended up losing to like freaking like Kyle and Z Freak and I think Tao was on that team too. I still joke to Tao about that team. Tao jokes to me about that team and
Complexity, yeah.
yeah, complexity, and they ended up beating us. I forgot who else was on that freaking team. Like Ziz, that was a
Yeah.
guy.
Zeus,
Yeah. And I forgot who their offlaner was. Like Hannah Montana, right, or some shit. No, that was
No,
TI2.
Hannah Montana
Yeah, I
played
forgot.
with IX Mike's team at one point.
You're talking about complexities
And
team?
Fluff.
Yeah, who was other offlaner?
I can't remember.
No, I remember 4 of their players, not the offlaner.
Yeah.
What did Moon
Yeah,
I'm not
play?
sure.
Boone wasn't on that team.
He wasn't on that team?
No, it was complexity. Like
The next
it was
year.
like it was Kyle's goon squad, like goons.
Oh yeah.
Plus Tal.
Plus Tal.
Yeah. So I think that was when Tal, like that year, he had joined like Team Secret, and then they ended up kicking him. He was playing off lane, and then he went back to playing 4.
Was it Chessie?
No. Shannon, where's your freaking Wikipedia at, dude?
God, you're gonna make me do work.
I'll search it.
Yeah,
I
let's
need to
see.
know this.
Yeah, we can't move on until we learn this, of course.
Oh, Moon Meander was on that team. Holy shit.
Oh wow.
Wow, so when you
that.
complained that Shannon didn't look it up, he actually didn't have to, is what you're saying.
Fuck.
All right, that's good. That's fine.
It's like I could have sworn
remember.
Tal and Moon played together, and Tal was only on the team for 1 year. So
Yeah.
Dude, can you imagine a team back then with Moon and Kyle and they lose 3 games in a row? Like, what's that atmosphere like? That would have been something.
Yeah. So that like TI qualifier I lost, I was like devastated because like TI was like like a pilgrimage for all us Dota players, like we all went to TI, we all wanted to play there at that point. Like I had been to everything except the first one, and and these TIs were like, I remember TI2 like the group stages was at Valve's office.
Oh
and,
yeah,
and it was freaking like they catered food from like some super ass like expensive steakhouse. It was so like much fun, and we're in Seattle.
I thought you were vegetarian.
Whatever. I love the side of steakhouses, but I'm just saying like they catered food from steakhouses and stuff. But I was like, and it was in Seattle, and like Seattle is beautiful in the summer, especially. So like TI is just like to all of us, it's like all I cared about at that point. So we didn't get to TI. I was like super depressed. I didn't know what to do because like I was gonna just kind of AFK that summer, and I think Phil was our manager, and like at the time. And Phil, like I'll be honest, like Phil has probably been like one of the most influential people in my life, like in a positive way. Like he was like I think to all of us he was kind of like our father. I don't know how, but he's just a very wise person. He's very smart. He gave me some advice like I can't just give up, blah blah blah. Like you gotta find options and I think at the time Charlie was like also managing the EG team. And we had lost the qualifiers. We were still stuck in Toronto. And we ended up going to some random like MLG or like X Games tournament in Austin, right? So we went to some X Games tournament in Austin. In that tournament, somehow at the end of it, like we ended up like Charlie and I ended up talking. I talked to like Peter and Fear and Aoi, and I was like Aoi was interested in me coming and helping them because at the time coaching was like very new. Only the Chinese teams had a coach. It was like at TI4, it was what's the fucker's name? The TI4 newbie had the coach. Come on, he's a legend. What's his name? Fuck.
Who
I feel
coached
bad.
newbie?
Okay,
357?
No, like it was a mid player that eventually went to that team. Mikasa. Remember Mikasa?
Mikasa.
Yeah. So Mikasa coached newbie, and at the time, like coaches were still very new. I didn't exactly know what I was gonna do going into it. I was just like, whatever I was gonna need to help. They had like Sumail too. I remember like I'd met Sumail at like the tournament. Like he was very like shy back then, you know. And I had known Fear obviously for a long time. Fear knew me. I had known Curtis too, like since like TI2 Dignitas when he was on Dignitas. Peter was like the one I didn't know that well, and I didn't know Sumail well. And Universe obviously, like me and him go back like
Mhm.
all the way. So it was like two of my Dota 1 friends from like MYM Prime Nations, Aoi, PPD, and like Sumail. So um, they ended up we ended up talking. I remember I was like I didn't exactly know what to expect. I think I ended up going to their boot camp in like Boston. Phil came too, so like me and Phil roomed. Me and Phil we talked a lot every night, like how to help the team and stuff. But back then, like I said, coaching was so new. Like we had no idea. Peter, usually he used to ask me for some stuff, and I was like a big replay nerd, so I used to like study a lot of replays, and I also wanted to obviously learn too, because that year like EG had won DAC, because like so this wasn't just like me trying to help them, right? It was also like like I'm trying to also learn more, because you want to keep learning and growing. So I just took an opportunity where I could help, and back then like I don't even think it was a very like small deal, and like I said, I didn't even do it for the money. Like I had no interest, like I had no expectation if they're even going to win. I just wanted to go, maybe help them because they had some of my friends, like especially Fear and Universe, like because I'd
And
known them for so long.
that was your secret, was the heavy favorites going in.
Yeah. And they had Sumail, and they had asked, and like I said, I didn't really want to do it for anything except the fact like just to help them and also learn. I'm not gonna lie, motivation was to learn and just get better. I mean, I was like, maybe I can learn a lot from Peter as a captain. What he does.
Mhm.
And I remember I took a lot of notes, like like I kept a lot of notes while it was happening, everything like that, and I definitely, it was like a very interesting tournament. I remember like the boot camp was fun. Like that team was like, I know Aoi said it was very professional. I think I listened to like one of his things where he was talking about it. The tournament is the team itself, like EG being like a very like professional team. And yeah, there was fun, but there was definitely like it wasn't all professional. Like there was a lot of jokes, like Charlie and Fear and stuff. Like those guys, they're funny. So it, it was like a mixture. Like there was a sense of professionalism because like the sponsor was so big. I think EG was sponsored by like Twitch at the time, or like like they were like owned by Twitch or some shit. So like there was a lot of money as well, like within the sponsor. I think that was like when Alex was running the team too. I remember that was like they took us to like some super nice steakhouse like at TI and
You
stuff.
had all the sides.
I'd had
Oh,
all the
great.
sides, yeah. And then that TI, like that was like the tournament when like CDEC came out, and I remember I more than like the EG, like I was a freaking big fan of CDEC. Like we had scrim, like the EG team had scrimmed them, so I'd watch them, and and Sumel was like the thing about Sumel was like he was like he went into every game with like such a big lead, like because of like he just demolished their mid, and I had played mid, so and mid, like mid is like probably like still probably the most impactful role in a way in Dota, right? So you have this mid, and back then like people didn't know like exactly what to do. Like Dota was a lot less like still like map everything, like map movement, like structure, like drafting, everything was a lot less like concise and figured out. Like definitely the game has leveled a lot the last years, right? And back then it was very more ragtag stuff. But you saw CDEC, and I was like a big fan of them because of the way they played. Like they were like such a big like fun team, and we were scrimming them. And I remember like, and this was also like Aoi, like he did the nicest thing anyone has ever done to me in my life. I'll be honest. One of the nicest things. I don't know if he's okay if I say what he did, but
Say it.
um, before the tournament, like, you know, we were randomly in the car going to like we were boot camping in like Alameda, I think. We were boot camping in Alameda and we were going into like the EG office, which was in like San Francisco, or it was the Twitch offices. We were boot camping in the Twitch offices in San Fran, and I think randomly like this was in the boot camp. Aoi had like I think Phil and me and Aoi were in the same car, and I think Aoi randomly asked about like the deal I had with the team or something, and I told him, and he's like, "Oh, that's pretty shit." And he's like, "If we end up winning and you think you did a good job, like don't worry, like And I'm like, and at the time I told Aoi like, "Don't worry, I'm also getting out a lot of because I was learning a lot,
Mm.
Like I was learning more than Dota stuff. I was learning a lot about how like Peter shot called. Like he was a very good shot caller. How like they handled things on their team. You know how Charlie was. Like Charlie was a very good manager. I think like like having a manager like that was like very useful, especially for those guys. He kept people in line. You know, and just in general how they communicated because like they were a very like calm team, right? So um that was like I learned a lot, and then how you said that I'm like I didn't think too much about it. Okay, so whatever, we go into TI. Like I said, like the mail dumpsters everyone, like the team has a very good structure. Like the only team that I put any like conflict I think was like there was some random game in the group stages where the team got like broodmothered by like Mag's team. I remember like no one Mag, that team Vega Squadron. And then later like the group stages like they got to play complexity first round, which is like Kyle got demolished. Kyle versus Swindle. Simil mid. And then after that Simil's just dumpstering at everyone. The team is playing well, you have like a really good mid player and everyone that does their job, and like the games like it's. And finally like they play CDEC, and they were doing a lot of things on the map and a lot of stuff. I remember that like we ended up losing to them in the winner bracket. And then Aoi and I like stayed up all night with like Fear in like the practice room, like we're nerding all their games and replays. And I loved watching replays from Dota 1. Like replays to me is like studying, like in some senses, like when I used to study in school and trivia, right? Like I am a more an analytical person. It's just like how I was raised and like what I like. So like watching a replay, looking what the team did at certain times, like was something I really enjoyed doing. It was like a hobby for me, more than just like a chore. So we used to like spend every night watching replays after we got demolished by like CDEC, and then like we all like I remember Aoi, me, and like Fear. We talked a lot about what they did, what to incorporate, and like and Peter came too, and we all like talked, and it was like somehow like that like after the mood, like when the team lost to CDEC into whatever happened, because like there was like like a lot that happened in that winner bracket game, because like losing to CDEC hurt a lot, because like at that point Secret had already lost, so like the team kind of felt like there was a vibe like, oh shit, this TI is ours. Because the team had beaten like CDEC every game, in scrims. So CDEC taught the team a lot. We went in, we ended up like the team ended up winning. It was like crazy. I remember like I like punched the freaking like TV in like the Valve room, like watching. Like I was so hyped up. Everyone was like super hyped up. Like
and then
everyone
Aoi
was,
paid for it.
yeah. And then whatever, the team ended up winning. I remember like Charlie asked if I want to stay as coach, but at the point like I loved playing. Like for me, coaching was always something I just did part time for like tournaments, like contracted, like I just at that. And it was also my first time as a coach. I did not want to do this like long term. Like I loved playing way more, and I wanted to like make my own team, play, get through that. Because like even if I was gonna make more money, like coaching or whatever, like, and maybe I was at that time like I wanted to like play, like it was too important for me. And then obviously it's like we ended up winning. I made some random like Aoi got kicked from that team, and this was like a month happened I think before like he ended up getting kicked or something. And then um I went on like vacation after TI, and then randomly one day he messaged me and he's like, hey, by the way, I like sent you like something for TI. Thanks for the work. And I'm like, at that point, I'd forgotten about it. I didn't ask him, because we had won. I'm like, I'm not gonna go ask him anything. I forgot. I was so excited and ecstatic. I was also like super hyped up about the Dota, and randomly, like he had sent me like at the time, I still is honestly like a considerable sum of money, a lot.
So he gave you a percentage of his prize pool, and nobody else did.
Yeah, I mean, he did it. Yeah,
That's fucking crazy, actually.
I didn't ask for it. It was not on the contract. Like I never asked for it.
Well, I think it's crazy that you didn't get a percentage to begin with, but obviously Curtis is a real G. Surprised nobody else did
I mean,
that,
like I said, I didn't. Like I said, that was coaching was so new.
Yeah, true.
I didn't get a percentage because, like,
Wow.
it was like it was new. It was just like if we win, I get the X amount. And I like I said, I didn't really ask for it more. Even when I got the deal, it was like me.
Sam, let me tell you something real quick here. So the reason Aoi got kicked after TI was that he told the other players that they should pay you, and the others refused. And he was like, "We have to do this. I can't accept that BuLba played such a big role in the win. We should pay this guy." And they were
like,
like,
I didn't care about it. Like I like I said, for me, it was a lot of it was to learn. Like I did not want
I
to
know.
win. I did not
Yeah.
care about winning as a coach. Like I really wanted to win as a player. So for me, this was like a bit also experience to learn as much as I can from like a team that won DAC.
That's like an
Right.
artist saying they're fine being paid in exposure these days, you know.
That was
Well,
what it was back then. Though.
Was it surprising to you, since you were hanging around the team and all that? Was it surprising that AUI got kicked?
I can see the whole thing. It's like, say like, it's like, what is it? Say like after like, it's like I think a big reason was also because like our tour was like, so like everyone thought Secret was like good because of our tour at the time, like on that team.
Mm.
Like they thought our tour was like, and they even said like the only like Sumil was like the like Sumil had a, like more than anything like Sumil like had a lot of respect for our tour, and Sumil had no respect for anyone else. Like back then, I'll be honest. Like Sumil was like our tour is the only one in the world that can like beat me in lane, and it's true though. Like I think that year itself, like our Sumil lost all his lanes to our tour. So like Sumil was like
TZ played mid for Secret that year?
he played mid and carry. Like back then, right? It
Oh,
was
they
the same.
swapped around. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He's like sometimes playing SF mid or some quap carry. Like Gustav was the other one, right? So S4.
Mhm.
So Sumil had so much respect for our tour. I remember, like, I think that was a big reason looking back why it happened. Like,
But
'cause you
Curtis
have this-
played 4.
yeah, but then like Fear also like he is having a lot of arm issues,
Mm.
and he wanted to swap roles. So it
I
was
see.
like EG needs a new carry, right? You know, Sumil is like only respects one guy in the world. Our tour ended up like not doing so well at TI6. He was like ready to,
Flip-flop
TI5,
again,
sorry,
yeah.
TI5, and then Sumel was like, "Damn, like, this is a good opportunity, like, to get," or the team was like, "This is a good opportunity to get our tour," right? And then, how we ended up getting kicked, and I'm not gonna go into too much details about like what happened, like why exactly. I was not there. Keep that in mind. Like, I had, as soon as the tournament ended, whatever I wanted, I was like searching up for my own like team, So suddenly when I heard Aoi was on the market, I was like, fuck, like, Aoi. Like so, Aoi and I eventually immediately made like the team. Then that was like when me and Shannon became friends, and I think Shannon can talk about, I think that
God,
was yeah.
what a shitty decision choosing you guys over OG. My fucking god. What the fuck was I thinking? Jesus Christ.
Okay.
I mean,
It's
that
like
first
Stockton.
roster was Biryu, right? TC, you, AUI. Who am I missing? Yawar.
Yeah,
That was
Yawar.
that roster did not even remotely work out. And then we replaced Biryu with 1437. I think it's the only change we made. We got a little bit better. And then I forget who we were kicking. I mean, you'll remember better than me because we were trying out Soxa and Rezo.
We kicked Viryu. We got Thieben.
You're right. But
Right? So
after
we kicked
that,
Viryu, and then we kicked TC
TC,
for resolution.
Annuar,
And Yawar for resolution.
and Soxa.
Yeah. What the wait? Who was playing carry?
So
Aoi started playing carry.
Yeah, we were gonna
Right?
switch Curtis to carry. Dude, our scrims
Oh,
were.
yeah.
We've talked about this before, but those scrims were so good. We were shitting on. I know they're just scrims, but like the amount that we improved with that change was astronomical.
I remember when funny stories. So like Rezo was already like a godly mid at this point. Like it's another story, but he was like the best mid in I thought like Europe at the time. Still like back then, like he was a godly. Like Resolution was just a fucking like freaking godly player. Like I'm not gonna lie, that guy has been like at TI4 till now. Like TI4 he played like a beast. TI7 he played like a beast. TI6 he played like a beast. TI freaking last TI he played like a beast. So got Resolution on the team. He was interested in looking for some Western teams, and Soxa was like a no name at the time.
Yeah.
Done research on him in pubs. Aoi and I we talked a lot on that team, and we were obviously really trying to make it work. And I think probably a big regret is after winning TI5, me and him definitely put a lot of pressure on the team. Like we both did. Like we would get pretty frustrated with people when because obviously me and him had a lot of experience and the others did not. And we had a lot of ideas from EG that we wanted to bring towards that team. How we ran the team, like things, and obviously like expecting some of one of the players to do whatever Sumail did,
Just be Sumail, no big deal.
Yeah, or like it's not just saying that, but we definitely put a lot of pressure. And then finally, like the team kind of, but we ended up making like we got some better players for the roles. Like Theben came. Saxo was like when I played with this guy. Like I remember like because I was playing offlane back then. I was like leaning, it was only for like a month or two. This guy was so freaking good. I was like holy shit. And the team was like gelling really well. Like we were having like really good like talks and everything was fun. Like Howie and I were really happy. And suddenly we got like the offer, and at the time, like I realized like TI4 to TI5, I did not want to make the same mistake where I was like a lazy fuck. So I tried really hard. I went from like being really like pretty low MMR for pro, and I got like top rank that year, I think on NA and in the leaderboard. So I was rank 1 as like an offlaner. So like EG started like thinking like, okay, BuLba, like he's good again, not like last year because he sucked last year, and they even like maybe he's working hard again because that was like I remember even like some of my friends told me they all noticed it. Artur had a heart to heart with me that year, like even because me and him were really good friends, like from TI2 days even. Me and him did laning practice, and he's like, BuLba, like what the hell are you doing? Like you're being like you got over like and I took that, and so that year I tried really hard. We ended up like and then they asked Aoi and me to join, and we like had a long talk. I was like, it was like such a
This
stressful
was
decision.
a few days before the roster lock, by the way. Just
Yeah.
throwing that out there.
I asked everyone for advice from like Phil, because Phil was like coaching, so it was like Phil was like, "Come on, blah blah," like Aoi was there, and like Phil and Charlie being part of the team was like a big reason I also wanted to go. And no offense to you, Shan.
Yeah, thanks,
So
BuLba. Appreciate that.
yeah, so we ended up like whatever and getting to play with those guys, and we went in with like Aoi carry and me off lane, and I think the first like 2 tournaments we played well, but we were like we had like there was like a lot of internal issues on that team. I remember um like I think also like the pressure definitely like got to us in a way, like that year, like got to me. I think I realized like I look back and like I got in my own head again. Maybe when I played with names back then, like these big names and stuff, like with a lot of like I always used to play worse. Um, I think that was just like something for me as a player. But like that team again, like I used to play really well in the practice games, like in scrims and matches and stuff, and I think when I used to get in those matches, in the scrims, when I used to get in the matches compared to the scrims, I used to like play a lot worse. Like I used to,
So
used to
this
get in my
was
head.
so was it Manila Major? You guys got kicked.
Yeah, we
Is that
got
the right
kicked after
timeline?
Manila, and then, like I said, Secret still thought like I was a good offlaner, like because I used to do like certain things in the game, like I used to try and make a lot of moves. I used to lead a lot from the offlane too, and they were looking for like someone to help like Eternal Envy and Artur, like help lead the game, because I was more of like a playmaker, shot caller. Like that was always my role. Like I used to talk a lot in the game. I used to make a lot of comms. I used to like help lead the team. That was like always something I always loved doing. Like I was never like a quiet person. Case in point, I'm blabbing all night. But and then we were just like super bad. I got kicked from EG. Ended up like getting a chance to play with Artur and Envy, like 2 of my best friends, like the 2 other NA Dota goons at the time. Me, like Artur, Envy, and I were like the 3 like NA goons. Along with like Fear and Jimmy, like those are like probably like the 5 players, as well as Sumail, and like like so getting to play with those guys, like it was not that big of a leap than EG. So I didn't feel that bad. And at that point, like that team with Puppy and stuff, like I thought our team was really good in the quals. Like we went in, like I remember like Puppy and we talked so much, like we were boot camping in like Istanbul, which was like around the same time actually, like when the coup happened. Do you remember? This
Oh
was
yeah.
like that was a scary time. We were in Istanbul when that coup was happening.
And Secret had the shady owner at the time.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah. So I don't know
You made
much
a lot of
about
friends
him.
with some shady owners in the past.
Come on. I'm not gonna comment on. He was a nice guy. Like I said, I didn't know anything what he was doing behind but
Yeah.
he was a nice person to us, and we had like a beautiful like mansion in Istanbul. Like we had guards and stuff. I remember like there was like guards with like guns outside and shit.
Jesus.
So it was like a pretty intense, like nice boot camp.
Is that the same? Wait, is that the same boot camp that Puppy punched the monitor? Or is that a different year?
Dude, Puppy didn't
That
do
was at a
anything that
tournament,
year.
I
I'm
think.
talking about like
Okay.
there was guards because of the coup happening.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just.
Oh.
I thought it was all related.
Yeah.
That would have been fitting.
No, that team, like the qualifiers, we ended up qualifying. Europe qualifier was like super like hard, I remember. And then Basically, fuck. One
Oh,
second.
your camera just
There
turned
goes the
off.
cam.
Cinder has been blown up.
Oops.
There we go.
There
You're
he
good.
is. You're good. You're good. All good.
Boba, I'm gonna send you.
I'm back.
I'm gonna send you a message real quick because I don't know if you want me to talk about this. Just give me the okay or the nay. Because there's one detail in a story I want to tell that you might not want shared.
Message me in.
So that specific detail, do you care?
Yes.
You do care.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
we will not. The story's so good though. It's unfortunate.
No.
All right, go ahead.
That's for like us at dinner, like an Indian restaurant.
Yeah.
It's that crowd.
All right, fair enough.
Because we say things after dark.
Yes. We say things
Nice.
at the Indian
When we all
restaurant.
retire, we'll tell the story.
Okay. But what was that? Oh yeah. So what the fuck was I? I mean, my history goes on for so long, dude. It's like 15 years of Dota, right? So or 13. So that was the year when Secret. So I thought like that team, we ended up doing really well in the quals. Like again, we went into the boot camp, like we had really good ideas with Dota. Like because we had a lot of smart people on that freaking team. If you think back, like Puppy, Owie was on that team. Eternal Envy. Like no matter what people say about Eternal Envy, like that guy revolutionized a lot about Dota. In reality, he came up with a lot of things. Pylai Die, like Theban, like there was a lot of like smart people, a lot of good. And the problem was that team, like we had way too many ideas. It was like 15 cooks in the kitchen. So when things started getting rough, there was a lot of and then there was obviously like Eternal Envy and Artur, like they both wanted to be stars. Like they want, like they both wanted like a lot of even though Envy will look back and be like, no, I wasn't. I was there. So they started there was a lot of arguments within that team. Like I remember our game we went out at TI was freaking we had Alchemist and Terrorblade on the same team.
Oh yeah.
It's a story of our team, Alchemist mid with a TB freaking bottom, and we just got it was went into groups, we were all playing really bad, we kind of all people started hating each other on the team, losing trust, it got rough, it was and we ended up bombing out of that TI, and that one was probably that one was really hard because I think that year was I really tried my hardest to get on some of those teams, and I think I look back and I definitely did some things I shouldn't have done. I definitely sometimes got a little bit too stressed out in some of the matches. I would start spamming a bit too much sometimes, and my comms and stuff were not as good, and also at times I just got a little bit distracted, and we just ended up kind of falling apart. And even though I thought the team was pretty good, and after that was when oh my god, dude, so many stories, dude. There's so much shit. Then it's I'm on Liquid randomly. That was the year, right? Where I was on EG, Liquid, and Secret, right?
The trifecta.
Oh, within yeah.
The three biggest orgs in the Western scene.
Yeah. So, this is another story. So I guess people or you guys don't know fully the how I got onto Liquid, right?
I don't even remember you being on Liquid after this point, honestly.
That was the team after TI6. So what happened was after TI5, we were on DC, right? We ended up bombing out of we didn't qualify for Frankfurt Major. We lost to freaking Cloud9 with Ritsu. Remember?
Yes,
so,
I remember that.
Again, so at that point, I had already coached EG at TA5. So I'd spoken a little bit to Charlie and Artur and Peter and stuff. And then they're we can come coach again for Frankfurt Major. Okay, so we kind of agreed. I went with them to Frankfurt Major. I think the team got top 3. And then after that, we didn't qualify again for Shanghai. Sorry, Shannon.
Yep, good job.
That was sad. That was when the majors were freaking godly too, right? These were godly majors, Shanghai and freaking whatever. Besides the shit, the actual tournament for the players was really good. The money, remember the prize pool for those tournaments was insane too. Those majors,
right?
Yeah. So
and the Shanghai major, the broadcast was a disaster, but the players loved it, right? That's how I remember it.
Yeah. But the hotel was amazing. They did a really good job of everything. So, and that finally we didn't qualify for Shanghai. So that time Blitz was with Liquid, right? He was like pseudo coaching Liquid while also casting. Like I don't know, like this was like doing his thing where he's like casting while also like helping Liquid. So I didn't know much of those guys. Like at the time, like besides Kuro and Fada, like I had no idea who Mind Control was. Like I knew Jerax from his like the Red Panda days and his Earth Spirit spam, and I knew I had known Matu from when he was like on like the Finnish teams, but not much. You know, I knew he had a good Ember, right? But I didn't know much about Matu. So I remember going in, and that team was so different than EG. Like overall, like the structure, everything. Like I remember the first day, like Kuro also was like a one like Kuro did things in a very like a very respectable way. Like I got so much respect for Kuro that year, like as a captain, what he did for that team. So at Shanghai Major, like I remember Blitz asked me to come coach. I'm like Kuro's like I spoke to Kuro a little bit online. We went into this like Shanghai we were boot camping like Utrecht in Netherlands, right? And and we went in like the first day of the boot camp. Kuro was like, by the way, BuLba, like I had not known these guys, so BuLba's gonna coach us. Whatever me and BuLba say, like you guys have to respect. Blah blah blah. He gave me like a lot of respect, And at the time, like as a player, I had just like not done that well, and I was pretty like demoralized. At Shanghai, like we had just not qualified. So I went in, and that to me, I still look back at all my Dota and like playing and coaching. That was probably one of my favorite teams ever to coach, like that first week, because like that team was like back then those guys, their names were like very small, but the work ethic and like how much effort they showed, and like and how respectful they were towards like a captain and like other people was like I'd been playing with NA players like all my life.
Here
Right?
we fucking go.
Okay. So when I got to play with these guys and how like professional it was way more professional than I ever dealt with. So we ended up getting top 2 at that tournament, and I think I got a lot of respect. Like those guys started respecting me quite a bit. The Liquid guys, like from Dota ideas and stuff. Like I remember Kuro and I, we made like we talked all the time about Dota. Like for me, like I had never found someone that I could talk to all the time about Dota, because to me, like I can talk all day about Dota, like all freaking day. Like I am still obsessed with this game, like 13 years ago. But later, and sometimes people be like, like, but we're talking too much about Dota, and I've been learning to control it. I can't,
We're getting there.
yeah,
We're good for now.
yeah, but. And then for Kuro and I, we talked all the time, like Shanghai Major, like we ended up like that was like, and then I guess they had a lot of respect for me, like after TI6, Kuro, and again after TI6, again, I got asked to join like a bunch of teams. I guess people thought I was like pretty smart and like I had a lot of experience and understood like Dota quite well. So after TI6, like OG, Jerax left Liquid, right? To join OG, and Jerax actually asked me to go with him to play offlane with his 4 on OG. Like people don't know that. Yeah, that was like a short. And then Liquid also asked me to, like Kuro had asked me to come play like 4 or 5 with them and help him captain the team. And I was like, by God's grace, like like this is like a good opportunity. And I ended up choosing. I loved Kuro, like I loved that team. I loved like all those guys a lot. I ended up joining that team, and I I ended up playing 5. And one thing, my 5 is fucking bad. I played really bad, but we learned a lot. We learned a lot about Dota. Like that team, we learned a lot about Dota. There was a lot of concepts like I remember Kuro and I talked about for that entire year, like and I got to see that team. Like they ended up winning TI7. So that one hurt.
Yeah,
So,
I can imagine.
Yeah, so I played like shit. I was playing 5. I had like I had some like I was just playing bad on 5. Like I should never play 5. Like I'm just a bad 5. And I like Kuro did a right move. He like ended up kicking me for GH, and they had a better skill player, and Kuros ended up switching to 5, and they ended up winning TI that year. So that one fucking hurt.
Yeah.
And I was on. The thing is, that year was also when I was on my favorite team as a player. So it's like weird, like it stung, but I was also on like probably my second, along with the TI3 team, like my favorite user player. Because like at that point, I was like, I'm really playing bad with these like big names. Like, I'm just like, I'm not playing well. Like, and I needed to figure out. I'm like, let me go back to my roots. Let me make like a team with like a bunch of friends. Get away from all this, because at the time people were memeing me like BuLba failed on EG secret liquid, blah blah blah, you shit, and and I'm like, I really wanted to kind of play with so I found like Abed. I had done research. I wanted to make my own team, and Mason at the time, like he was playing carry. He had wanted to make a team with me, and Dubu, he was like a new player that year, Korean player. He was like my favorite five one that year. He was like, people don't know much about like fuck, sorry. It's Mason calling me. Sorry. Okay.
Right on time.
What the
I
hell?
heard my name.
Okay, so basically that year, so Dubu was like a support player I really respected. Like he was a really good. He was a shot caller. He was a very fast player. Like the MVP Korea team. Like I was a big fan. Like I've always been a fan of like fast Dota. It's like a literary term. Like what is fucking fast Dota? But it can mean a lot of things. And for me, he played it. I'm not gonna go into too many specifics of what it is or anything, but like to me, he played fast Dota, right? And I really wanted to play with him. So I ended up making a team with like Mason, Jimmy, Abid, and Dubu. Um, we were like, I thought we were pretty good. We ended up going to Kiev Major. I sucked ass with Magnus. I ended up switching to my favorite role, actually, which was four position. I think like it was my probably one of my favorite roles I've played with because I could do a lot. I could make calls. I didn't have to play five, because I hate fucking five. Like you're so, and then that we ended up kicking Jimmy for 4F, and that team at TI7, like even though I look back and maybe like we got like a ninth to 12th place, like that year, that journey of building a team at DC, building like that made me realize like, okay, I really love like like it was my last year of playing too, right? And I was like, this team was like really fun to play with. Everyone worked hard going in, and for some reason, I think like Dubu didn't want to play with like Mason, and like Dubu and Forev like wanted me to go along with them, and I had to choose between like the Koreans or like or Forev or sorry or Mason or something like that, something along those lines. Like, and it ended up being a situation where Dubu and Forev ended up leaving. I got like Moon Meander, Mason, myself, and Abed. That was a team, and MSS, and that team was a fucking disaster. It's like I think Moon Meander, myself, and Mason like butted heads a lot. So we like again. I don't know why we swapped. I wish. My
Did
regret
you
is
end up on
keeping that.
5 again?
No, I was playing like three, but I forgot what role it was. At that point, like I played like every role except one. Like I don't remember what the fuck role. Anything except two. So I was either on 3, 4, or 5. And then I just like sucked. Maybe like we were just sucking really bad, and then um and I think Abed ended up leaving because at the time like he was there all year. He ended up playing with us. He was like probably the best teammate I've played with. Like at that time, I played with the best good teammates, but Abed that year was like the best teammate ever. I mean, he still is an amazing teammate, but he was super high skilled. Like that was when I started like loving like Southeast Asian players. Like they have like very low ego. They work like very hard. They have like super like a lot of them are super high skilled, and they like want to listen to like a leader. They want to be soldiers. A lot of those
Yeah, I've
players.
heard
Right?
Abed is exactly like that
Yeah.
from several
So
people.
yeah, and then he's also like he's the kind of guy when you lose, you're not gonna be worried about him. Like
Mm.
he's just gonna move on. So Abed ended up leaving. As soon as Abed left, I'm like, fuck, what am I supposed to do? Or like I wasn't happy with the other options we had. Like and at that point, like I had like a big thing where and that's when I started talking a lot to Phil and like Phil used to give me a lot of advice, and I think that was like after TI7, I was like, okay, I had a lot of fun in 2017. Like I've had fun playing. Um, I think I can maybe get like a ninth to 12th or like maybe bottom. I think I can still get to TI as a player. I don't think I can win TI as a player at this point. I don't think I can get on a team that can win TI.
Mm.
Like I think with the players I'm going to be able to maybe get, I can maybe get 9th to 16th, but at that point, like I had to kind of sacrifice like my playing to go coach, and that was when around the time I was speaking like the EG guys again. Like I was at some summit. My team was disbanded, so I had nothing. Like I was maybe looking to make a team with some like Southeast Asian players, or possibly coach. Um, And then they ended up asking me, and that was like the misery team with like, so they had already had their team, and then they had asked like, what do you think about it? I had spoken a little bit to Phil and Artur and Fear at like the summit, and that was like the big decision where I was like, I'm gonna quit playing that year and try to coach for TI8. But my aspirations were still to only to coach till TI8. I still wanted to play, but I'm like, I want to win TI as a coach, and this is when the coach, like I wanted to win again, as a coach, because I just
Mhm.
didn't think I was going to be able to get a good enough team. I was like, maybe if I end up winning as a coach, I can get a good enough team as a player. That was like my logic at the time, right? Because my priority is still to play. Like playing is like all I cared. Like so that year was like very depressing year for me, like in a sense personally, because I had been playing professionally for so long, and then I had never really gone what I wanted as a player. So to be able to give up on that dream and like change my entire identity as like a pro player to a coach was like it was just like a complete change in identity. I was like very depressed.
Did it
Like
feel like, this is a question for Sundern as well? Did it feel like it was an overnight decision? It felt like okay, suddenly it's just changing, or did it feel more gradual? That this thing you've been wanting to do, but it's not gonna happen. It seems like.
Do you want
Question
me
for
to answer that
both
first?
of you. It doesn't matter.
I I don't
I've
I
been
don't know if
talking
there's
Alex.
anything like that that's ever overnight unless you specifically set for yourself, like unless you give yourself an ultimatum, right? Where you're like, this is my last event, for example, and you're like, crash and burn. If I don't do this well, I'm out or whatever. But I think I don't think players generally will do that most of the time. I think you're going into it with the best that you've got, and you have your dreams, your hopes, or your expectations, or whatever. And then if it doesn't work out the way you want, then you think ahead and you go for the next thing, right? I think most of the time it's a gradual thing where over time you're like, okay, I'm slowly starting to not have the same drive or motivation or the same skill that I used to have. And I think a lot of it also for players will come down to what alternatives do you have, right? Because a lot of the players that we still talk about and still know that do either casting or coaching or some other role, there's just as many players that just disappeared, right? It's like, wow, this guy was actually kind of a star and then he just vanished. And it's like, well, those players didn't have other avenues, but for you and me, Bulba, fortunately, we have something else we can do, right? Because coaching is not for everybody, casting is not for everybody. Most players will only play and that's it. And if it isn't going well enough and they don't get another team invite or build their own, then all of a sudden they're just gone, Then they do something completely different.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% agree with Sin. I think if I didn't have Charlie or Phil, I might have just stuck to playing too. I'll be honest. I think time Charlie was just like, Boba, stop being an idiot. Like you need to be able to have like some stability in your
Mm.
life too. Stop being a freaking idiot. And I appreciate Charlie for that. Like honestly, I look back and like all the harsh truths people gave me, like those are the ones I appreciate
What were the harsh
from my
truths that I
friends.
gave you, Bubba? Pay for
Those you
dinner
like
every once in a while. That's
pay for dinner. I paid.
He finally paid for dinner. Everybody, he did it. It was really good too.
It was a
Very
good dinner.
memorable.
That was a good dinner. That
Okay,
was
so we're going slightly over time, but can you sum up the last few years, and then we'll get to Shopify, obviously, the last few years of coaching EG as a whole, and what kind of experience that was like for you?
okay. So okay, I guess playing chapters over. I'm a coach now. TI8, our roster, like for the first 4 months was just like I don't know, like when I joined that team as the coach, like I didn't like have like the say on like exactly what roles, but that role, like the roles we had was like super messed up. Like it was like Sumail randomly like off lane, Artor like carry fear mid. Like I don't exactly know what was going on. That team was like it was gonna be super hard for us to win with like and the team did not get along. Like so we finally like got the chance where Tal and Gustav ended up joining. And TI8 was like coaching wise, like probably I think the team where we had the best chance to win TI. Like for me, the last like 4 years to win as a player or a coach. I think that team, like we had all of the guys that kind of struggled that entire year, like all of them. So and these guys were all like really fucking good players. So like, we all struggled. That everyone's egos were like at a very low. People were very humble and like ready to learn and work hard. So for the next 3 months, like and I was still really wanting to like win, because I wanted to play after that TI. Like I really wanted to still play, and I was like, let's just get, let's help my goal was at that point, let's just help these guys, like help win TI. Like, I really obviously wanted to help Artur win too, and Crit, because both these guys had been like trying, and they've gotten pretty close a lot of, but it's never there. And I think that was the team where, and Gustav already won, and same for Tal. Like Tal, like when he had joined as a captain, like of all the captains I had worked with, I think Tal has the best balance of everything. Like, he's also just such a good person. Like I've never met someone like as good of a person with him as him in the Dota scene. Like he's a loyal friend. He's like he's very easy to talk to. He's very smart. Like he's like a really good person. Like no joke. So when he joined and I got to work with them, like it was a very like I think those were the 2 years where like as a team, all of us like we had a lot of fun. Like all of us, like especially that year. So TI8, we ended up getting third, which is sad. Because I think that year was like I thought we were actually like play wise. I think I'm being completely like honest. Like I'll admit when I think that year that team was the best at that TI. Like play wise, we fell apart near the end. Like we lost that freaking insane series to OG. Like 100% think OG TI9, like godly team, best team probably ever in Dota. I think. you know. And TI8 OG, I did not think as much. I thought us and LGD were better, but TI8 LGD had like, they had a lot of stuff. Like their mental thing was like on a different level, right?
Yeah.
So they ended up winning. Props to those guys. I didn't expect them to win. I thought it was going to be LGD or us to win that one. And then we ended up getting third. It was a sad loss because I think all of us thought that was the one. Like our strategies were really good. Our play was like godly. Everything was like super good. The flow was amazing. And then the boot camp was godly, and we ended up crashing, or we ended up falling near the end, which is sad. And then finally, I had to make the choice whether I was going to play or coach. I had some options to play with some decent players because getting third, I was like kind of my fruition of like doing okay. It was like, okay, this can help me, and I had some options to go play, and I was definitely contemplating it, but I was like, in my heart, I was like, this this felt too short. Like it didn't feel like the job was done,
Mm.
because like for example, Artur, I thought he was the best carry that year. Like Anna, don't get me wrong, like he played really well, that TI, but Artur, like all parts of the game, that TI was a freaking god. Sumel was beasting enough. Gustav was like, our supports were like the best support duo of that tournament. So I was like, this team has a lot of hope and faith, like and it didn't feel right. And also Phil was like, again, Phil helped us so much throughout that. Phil does a lot of like behind the scenes stuff with that team. And for the guys, like he's been a friend and father to all of us. So I ended up saying no to playing and stuck us together as coach. And then we had that team that year, and we ended up getting like obviously like that year we got a lot of good placings and with top three. We never ended up winning. We got like top two at some of the like two of the tournaments too. And then I definitely think though like getting those high placings like got to people's heads. I think like we ended up becoming like going into TI9, we were definitely like a pretty lazy team. Like I think people like were not as humble or not as hardworking as they were at TI8. So TI9 we got sixth place, obviously an okay placing, but people were not happy. Like that's the kind of team where if we did not get top two, top three, top one, like we were getting angry. Like we were very mad. Like so we ended up swapping out two players after TI9, which was like a big deal, that was like a lot of drama. I'm not gonna get too much into that. And then we ended up getting Abed and Ramses for offlane. So um Ramses offlane, like that guy was like at the time, I mean he still is like that guy was like people are like, why the hell did you bring a carry player to like to off lane, all that shit. But like, if people saw how that guy played for like 2-3 years as a carry, like they will understand. Like it's like honestly a lot of like knowledge. I don't think a lot of people fully know what goes on in teams in Dota. Like like I don't fully think like because like it's true. Like Aoi was saying it on some other interview too. Like Dota teams are very like quiet. Like uh, don't talk. Tal even had a rule when he was an OG like 4 or 5 years ago. He memes like he had a BuLba ban, you know, Like, there's like information is very important in Dota. It definitely has been, especially back then, because a lot of like things people did not fully know. But like Ramses, like that guy was such a good. I thought he was a really good offlaner. Um, and that team we ended up getting second at Germany.
That was the
Like,
COVID year, right? So everything was kind of
yeah,
fucked.
yeah, but this was right before COVID. We got second place at Germany. We lost 3-2 to Secret. Like Abed, Ramses, Artur, like that team was like freaking beasting up. Like that tricore, and we ended up getting second at Germany. And then COVID year happened. It was completely shit. Like we didn't even know what was happening with like our team. The world was going to shit, obviously. Ramses got um like couldn't play with us. Like Abed couldn't play with us, and Ramses got to play. I had to freaking stand in for a few. And over time, like this is a PSA to all the gamers out there, pro gamers, like make sure you do exercises because like I started, my back started like it was also probably a reason I quit playing. I had started getting a lot of back issues the last few years, like herniated disc. I had to go to the emergency room.
Wow. Okay.
So I ended up getting a herniated disc and stuff close to like like I had to get a lot of stuff on my back, even operation and shit. So that one was like and rough and like I had to play as well that year, and it was like a mess, like online. We ended up winning some online tournament, which was funny. Those guys, I was like, it was like my new shit talk. You guys are losing to a 30-year-old like retired coach. I was, so we won some tournaments that year, and then finally like Ramses ended up like leaving the team, which was like I really like we tried to make that team work, but it was just like COVID, we didn't know when TI was. TI was canceled, which sucks for us because we were the team that was 100. Us and Secret were guaranteed to TI that year. And then Ramses got kind of tired of playing off lane in pubs, so he ended up like joining some Russian team, leaving, and then we had to find a new offlaner. Got Ice Ice Ice. We had some options that we had like Ice Ice Ice. I think Resolution was interested too. Like, we ended up choosing Ice. I think everyone like really respected him on the team. And then, so we had gotten second at Germany, whatever. The next season started, like the post-COVID season. Remember that one? We got to Singapore. Again, that team, like, we played so well that major. We had like such a good understanding. I think we had kept a lot of the same things from the previous year. Like, we had not lost a lot of, even though we were some like a player or two was changed, we still had kept a lot of the good things from the teams. And I think that's something like also Tal is like very good at, right? Like he's a good like captain overall, at not just the Dota, at everything. So we kept a lot of like the team mental stuff, intact. And then Singapore, we go in, we end up like losing the finals. That one also fucking sucked. We lost 3-2 to those IG guys. Like, I thought again that was like coulda, shoulda, woulda, but that game three was ours. Sad. It would have been a 3-0.
Question mark. Yeah.
Yeah, we ended up getting fucked by Kaka. So near the end, Kaka fucked us. IG, like that team was like godly team. I'll be honest. Like that guy, like I don't know what happened to that team after TI10, but that team was like so good at that major. And the second major as well, we got second. Like so, everyone was feeling, like obviously we're not winning. It sucks to lose those grand finals, but when you get second place like 3 times in a row, like like you're getting to the final, and even getting to the final for all like players is hard. Like getting top placing in Dota is hard. You have people like it's for anything, any sport, for any competition. Getting top two, top three, it's hard, and being able to do it every year, regardless of what patch. These guys played really well. I'm not gonna take any credit. Like these guys played well every year. They worked hard. They kept it, especially the core like Abed, Artur, Crit, and Tal.
Yeah.
And consistency is hard. Like being at the top constantly is honestly like like because they're going to be gunning for you. People were gunning for us those 2 years. And we ended up getting second at Kiev Major. We had good memories. And then we had like this super fucking long break because TI got postponed, which I think fucked us. We didn't like because also a big issue with our team was obviously like regional. Like we had like 2 players in C, and we ended up not playing some of the tournaments, which I think was a mistake, like in the break. So we had like we had gotten second place at 2 majors. We had like a 3-month break, and I think we lost a lot of momentum over that summer. Like Cyberpunk came out. Just kidding, but
Yeah, understandable.
yeah, we went into and like we did not do that well at TI, and that was hard because I think that was the TI where everyone was like, we're feeling like the TI8 team again. TI8 really good.
Yeah, I thought that TI you guys would win. I mean, second place at that many tournaments.
Yeah.
Pretty
And everyone
crazy.
had a lot of trust, a lot of faith in each other. We were playing very good Dota. Dota that all of us wanted to want to play with each other. And obviously it's not like everything's perfect. We've had arguments and stuff. Like it's important. But we were always able to communicate things well and come to a good conclusion. And we had some really good Dota ideas, and everyone contributed. And I think finally TI10 we bombed out. And that one was like, oh, like I think at that point frustrations kicked in. Like everyone was very upset we lost the way we lost. Because there was a lot of expectations for us going into that one. We fucking sucked ass in the groups. Like there was just a lot of things that were affecting the team. All of us, none of us performed well. The strategy was not good. We were not at all the same team. I felt like we were earlier on in the year. People were acting a lot differently, and then finally we ended up getting ninth to 12th. The worst placing in the year. And at the time, before going to that tournament, I remember speaking to the team even and saying we're all unanimously whatever goes into this TI, I want this team to stick together. Because I really loved the team. I think at that second major, one of the majors, I was literally crying because I was so happy with the team. Everyone put in so much love and effort because Dota is our life. That's all we have. And everyone was putting it in there and seeing to me, I saw when we played on that stage, fucking beautiful Dota at those majors. Beautiful fucking Dota. I was memorable. For me, what I've learned is the last 15 years is now whether I'm playing or coaching, I love seeing beautiful Dota. Beautiful Dota. It's like a painting, right? And we were playing fucking beautiful Dota, and then we ended up crashing and burning, and bad decisions were made, out of maybe emotion and frustration and the fact to let's change things up for the sake of changing things up. I think we the five of us have been stuck together. Tal, myself, Artur and Crit. Artur and Crit have even been earlier, right? And then Abid is obviously a little bit newer, but so and Daryl too, so Daryl had just joined, and then there was some change at the time. Team Spirit had won, it was the new players were taking over, right? In some senses, in some senses that year, the new players took over, right? That TI in the way of team spirit, and Nightfall and I have been pretty good. I've known him for a while. I know the type of player, and I think Roman worked out, really well, and Nightfall ended up joining, and I think also we obviously with the Tal ended up getting kicked, which was obviously a big mistake, right, for all of us. And I think it was probably one of the biggest regrets I think all of us have had. Why? I think it showed for me, I look back and we did it for the sake of change. We had a lot of trust. We loved playing Dota. We liked each other. We had a lot of fun, and you can't take that shit for granted. We were getting top placings, and you can't take that shit for granted.
Right? Yeah, it's just like the Cloud9 that got second place every tournament, right? Yeah. And then they blew up.
Yeah, and we made this change, and definitely it was rash. And Jerax, obviously, I had known him from Team Liquids, right? So, and he was interested in coming back, and obviously, I think if Jerax wasn't able to come back, maybe I don't exactly know. It was a weird situation. Everything was rushed. We were all emotional, including myself, and finally, changes were made, which we probably everything changed. And I think also I feel bad for Igor and Jirax because I think we didn't know what we were getting into. Because this last year was probably the worst year for a lot of us. Not just play Dota wise. We had so many visa issues. I was insanely stressed for the first 3 months because the Russia war was happening around in February, and Igor was not getting his visa in December, and we didn't know about the Russia war obviously up till February, but getting a Russian American visa is very hard, right? So there was like, I think we had our debut. Me and Igor had to go to Mexico City last minute, right? And we had to boot camp in like 3 different locations. The conditions were not good for Igor. Like he was not happy. Like none of us were really happy with like where we were at. Like it was me and Igor. Like it was not optimal. It was very stressful. We didn't know if he was even going to be able to play with us. We had to use a stand-in in January for the first DB season with MSS. Yes, it had come back, and I think like we had also kind of realized like okay, with Tal gone, a lot of the things had to change. We didn't really have a leader on the team, right? Um, and it's just all this like grass is greener stuff kind of, and I feel bad especially for Yese, like and Igor also, like for the fact like the season was not optimal. Like we didn't start out well, and that was a team where like 100% like it was not good to have like I can't go too much into this, but like it wasn't a good start. So already the team kind of started off on a bad foot. There was a lot of conflict this last year. Not gonna be like you're not gonna lie about it. There was conflict. It was hard. The first 4 months was like a mess. Like it was and I think it definitely humbled all of us, like in a sense, because we all kind of fell, like all of us on the team, like because we went from being the certain thing and then we bombed out of like Arlington, and I think we all could have done. I think I could have done a lot better. I was like everyone was frustrated. I was frustrated. Everyone was emotional. I was like very emotional. Like it was just a fucking rough year, and finally Tao ended up coming back after Arlington, which sucked because like this whole thing with Yesay and Tao and like all this mess. It sucks because these guys are like your friends, like, and you want to win and you also, you're a friend. And I love Yesay to freaking death. I really do. Like he's like I still am not lying that Shanghai major team was like, and this guy is like he's won 2 TIs, and the entire year I was with him, like he did not talk like he won 2 TIs. He never acted like he won 2 TIs. Like this guy has no freaking ego. So like
That is
like
true. Yeah.
yeah,
He just
like
wants to play shooters on a
yeah,
trackpad.
he's a beautiful person, I'll be honest. So that was a big mess, and then um finally like we ended up going, and then this TI was like uh we had a pretty decent boot camp. And the thing about this team this year, I'm not gonna lie to you, is our scrim win rate is insane. I've never had a team. This team, generally our EG team, we don't always do that well in practice games. I'll be honest. Like the last years, like we had some throwy scrims, when we had Soga on our tour on the team, even like scrims were thrown, sometimes. No offense to both those guys, but like, but and obviously Dota's become way more serious. Like a lot of teams take those scrims seriously. For example, Spirit, they talked about their win rate before the scrims
Mhm.
at the TI10, right?
Yeah.
Right. We scrimmed those guys. We got fucked by them. Remember, like they were super good. And then this year, all year, even like with the first iteration when we had like before Arlington, like or before Stockholm Major, like we had some 90-80% scrim win rate. Like I have all the freaking stats and stuff,
Oh,
So
you actually keep stats on scrims.
yeah, so I think most teams do, I think. But like our scrim rate was
Hmm.
insanely high all year. Like
Mm.
we would go in, and the thing's obviously, like no one, it scrims. The fuck does it matter, But like, it was hard to fix because we played these practice games, and the games would go so well. Like we were playing beautiful Dota. Like I remember before like Arlington Major, I think like there was some article like we had scrimmed VP a lot, and we had scrimmed quite a few teams, and a lot like some of the teams were like I remember the OG manager had told me like like we were outside like we were just casually talking, and he was the one who confronted. He's like, by the way, you guys are the strongest team we played in scrims. Like so we were doing really well. We were shitting on like LGD, like like in practice, everything was going really well. Like like the teams were really revered, right? So we went to the matches, and I don't like shit happened. Things happen, like and I think this entire year we kind of had that issue, like before even, and then finally at TI, the group stages is what you saw. I'm like me and like our fellow manager Andrew, and Tao was like, this is we're here. Like the group stages were like fucking people super hard, like and we're playing so good, and everyone is like finally like the EG, the team that was like in those practice games. We're alive,
Yeah.
and
So you,
then
you win groups, right? You go to upper bracket.
oh, and then I'm not gonna lie to you, like that first day, it was pretty fucking frustrating, because I could hear the comms, and
So you played day one in
First
the
game.
smaller arena, right?
And we're already a team. We had communication issues. Okay, we've had communication issues all year with the team, stuff like that, and we finally fixed a lot of it. We had, and we had a good idea, and then we go into this like games, and Thunder. I mean, first off, like people are I think some of my friends, when I say people, I mean like friends. Like I don't care about the freaking, the goons out there, but when I say friends, like why did you choose freaking Thunder? But like we had we had played Thunder all year. We knew exactly like how they're gonna play. They did not change. Like honestly, they played very similarly, and like we were very confident with them. Like we beat them so many times. I think Matthew had messaged Crit at some point. He's like, because they had canceled scrims with us at the boot camp, and like in advance, and Crit asked or someone Crit had messaged Matthew. He's like, why? And he's like, because we had done so well versus them in the practice games. It's like it's a confidence loss to lose. We had beat and then we just then I heard the comms, like everything was a mess. I after the games, I also talked to some of the people, like Igor even told me like he could hear the casters. It's annoying, like English is not his first language, so he can hear the casters.
So
Right?
talk to me about, did anybody talk to PGL or Valve or anything? Because we've
I
heard
mean, it
a
was
couple
after the
accounts.
fact. It was after the fact. What could we really do?
So nobody paused the
Ultimately,
game or anything like that.
I don't think so because it's like we're gonna try and play it,
Mm.
right? But I could hear it was a different team, and I'm not gonna say like maybe that was the reason, but it was not the same team that we had in the groups. Like we played a lot, and maybe it was also like we've also not played in front of a stage in a while. This team, like Aui's interview was like Tundra, like they played a lot better in Stockholm than so I don't exactly know, but Thunder, like the games, we it was just like it was chaotic as fuck that first day, and then we just kind of bombed out. And I think I'm trying to. My biggest thing is what I'm just trying to think what I could have done better too. We all, like I definitely am trying to be really effective with what I could have done better as a coach because it's like reality is like this year was a failure for like this
Oh,
team.
that's kind of the issue with
So,
Dota, is that everything, all the pressure is on this one tournament, right? Even the year that you guys got second place every time.
yeah, I mean the thing is like at least I mean that year we at least did well in the other ones. This year we bombed out of every tournament. So
Yeah, I think a
it
lot of
was
the changes were like to the
yeah
roster obviously had some
yeah.
effect, right?
Yeah, so whatever. We ended up losing to both the Beast Coast and Thunder Predator. They both like, and maybe whatever. Thunder might have been a good matchup. Maybe like I know some of my teammates said Group A, Group B, but I do think it was a different like team out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like than what we had shown in all phases. Even like uh, strategy, play wise, everything was like just different. Comms, like everything was different. Because obviously like you're not able to hear like the comms during the group stages, but you can hear during the playoffs. So it was just shit. And the next day, like it was just I think just didn't and my regret is probably I didn't do a good job like recovering, and I think like we ended up kind of losing to Beast Coast, and yeah, that was it. And then finally, I think like maybe for some people, like maybe like this year was like it's time to move on in a way, and I think Nightfall obviously he went over to the Russian power stack he has, like he wanted to go play with his friends, and I think it's fine. Like in a way, maybe he made the same thing where he ended up playing with like names, and maybe he wants to he wants to play with his friends, right? And I felt bad because like I really like Igor, like he was a especially near the end he kind of did everything that was asked of him, and he's a beast, and I was really hoping this team iteration would work. I'll be honest. I think we all did. So when we lost like that, it was like really sad, especially because like even Crit said in his like exit interview, like we were at the top in the groups and then suddenly you fell. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons why it can happen. That's the thing about Dota. There's not just one reason why you lose, right? Like it can be so many reasons, and it's always hindsight of like why you lost. Like you have to figure out what to do moving forward, and uh, and then we ended up staking with the same. I think there was definitely like I think people didn't want to make the same as a collective unit. We didn't want to make the same mistake we made last year, where we're just shaking. Tal was like amazing captain. Crit, I think, is still the best four. Arturo played like a god. This Ti, Abed, I think, is still the best mid. Like I don't think any of these guys have any doubt in each other. You know,
Mm.
and I think like whatever this year was shit, we're gonna work harder and we're gonna move forward and try, because we did the opposite approach last year, and if anything, it fucked up. Maybe even the careers. Who knows at this point, right? That like a bad roster change can ruin everything.
Mhm.
So,
So-
and yeah.
Yes, I was just going to ask. So you said that obviously when you lose, it's always a complex thing, which everything about Dota is. There's so many things going into it, so many factors and whatnot. So how do you personally deal with, and how does the team deal with? I think no other team, even remotely closely to you, has someone as big a lightning rod as you are from the community, right? Like when EG does badly, it's BuLba this, BuLba that. The drafts are bad, kick BuLba, yada yada. Like, how does that work internally? Can you try to like? Because I don't know if you've talked about this very much publicly, right? Some of the players sometimes have said, "Yeah, you guys are talking shit about BuLba. Stop doing it. It's a team effort, you know." But like from your perspective, how do you cope with that? Because I don't think any single person on a team gets as much hate as you do. So
I definitely think I have gone a lot better. Like my skin has become a lot thicker, and not just because I've gained weight during COVID, eating all that Thai food, but I think Dr. K helped me quite a bit, because like reality is like anything, if you listen to everything, if you listen to what good stuff people say, you're gonna listen to like the bad stuff. So I've been trying to like eliminate most of it. Obviously it's hard to get completely off social media, but I've like taken it more into light. I've like I just don't care as much. It doesn't affect me. Like I
That's
definitely
good.
don't really care as much. I used to get affected. I think Dr. K definitely helped me quite a bit with this. Like I worked with him the last few years. Like he's an amazing person. He helped us for like a year, like honestly just for free even. Like, he helped talk to like Artur and myself and Tal even. So like he helped me a lot personally, like deal with it, because a lot of it is like how you deal with it and how you make of it. Like ultimately, like I care more about what my teammates say or what like other players I respect say, or like like I don't really freaking care what like someone random has to say. At the point, like ultimately, like I just understand that like it's just what it is. It's how it is. Like when you're in the spotlight or when you're in like a public thing, like you're gonna take shit, and maybe I put myself out there more, definitely in the past, and I've also like, and in a way it's life. Like I've come more to terms with it. Like I don't really care.
So,
I yeah.
having said that, what the fuck is up with Storm Spirit, BuLba? Give us the rundown.
What? I mean, like the team that won that tournament literally picked it. It's
No,
just
I
like
know.
it's just funny, like if it's just all hindsight. This is reality. If like it's not like Abed, I'm like Abed, I'm like putting like forcing him in the chair, clicking it for him, and like have a gun over his head. You better play fucking Storm. I don't think anyone like think like maybe sometimes we've overpicked it or something, but like reality is like ultimately like look at freaking. It's just so hindsight. Like if Neta loses like every game he's playing Doom, at TI, he ends up losing with freaking Doom near the end, and like it's just hindsight stuff, right? It's like when
Yeah.
you win, you win. It's like winners write history. That's just all of what all of us have learned. It's like it's just everything is hindsighty. So it's like yeah, I love Storm as a hero. I think every like the hero's a fun mid hero to have, and it was like in that patch it was a really good hero. Like I don't think we even picked Storm at TI, right? So
Right.
and
Right.
BZM played it every game, so. Like, I don't care. I mean, then you have some idiots like Jenkins on the cast saying, and obviously it's gonna like, it's gonna like.
Man, you really hate Jenkins these days, huh?
I mean, I'm just saying like the memes and also are also extrapolated by the people saying the story.
Yeah.
So you know, like I'd rather just not do with people like that. I'll talk to someone who I respect.
Has there ever been a point where you're about to pick Storm and you second guess it because you know people are gonna bring up?
I don't. I trust me. I don't care about those things. So
That's awesome.
like
That's good to hear.
like
Okay.
I've gotten death threats. Hope your family dies of COVID. I've heard everything.
Well, yeah, that's one thing that's
So
super toxic is the betting community, right? They really get angry when people
no, but at
lose.
this point, like I said, I don't care. If my teammates think like or someone says it, like we're gonna have a discussion about it or whatever. Like I care way more about my teammates say or like maybe like some Seb on some cast or something. Like why the like it just doesn't matter to me
Mhm.
ultimately like what they say. And I think you kind of have to have it as like a pro. You have to have some like sense of thick skin. I think if anything, I didn't have thick skin before.
Mhm.
So I think It sucks like to like read bad messages from stuff, but I've been limiting my like reading of it anyways. Like I don't read much of it, and I kind of just take it in stride. Sometimes it definitely affects, but like if I listen to what people actually like say in that sense, no, I'm gonna like actually take criticism from like my teammates or people like I respect,
Hmm.
So like most people don't really fully know what goes on in a Dota team in a Dota game, like what
Yeah.
actually a structure of a team is, how to play certain heroes, like why a hero is even picked. It's not like it's like very rarely you hear that
Right.
so it's like it's just that's my
Okay, so we're nearing the end, but I do want to ask a couple more questions and then do trivia. Okay, so make these
yeah,
ones a
sure.
little bit quicker. But tell me how the Shopify thing happened. Like, did you guys hear about the EG dropping of, or I just changing their rosters? I guess is technically the term of going South America beforehand, or did you learn after?
I think we had learned in the process. I think it was definitely sucked. I think the reality is I think we had a rough year. So it was like it was in a sense, and then they saw an opportunity to. I mean, they chose the guys. Like I was just wondering, if we had beat Thunder Predator, if that would have happened or not. Probably not, but
Mhm.
so it's the whole same thing. The
Did I
winners
not
write the
talk to
history,
you
right?
at dinner about this? I talked to
Yeah, you did
Fly.
actually. Yeah.
Okay.
So, um, I mean, they deserve it. I'm happy. Like those guys like played really well at this TI. I'll be honest. Like I gained a lot of respect for, especially like Matthew. Because he's been like having a rough few years. But this year he really turned it up. Because normally Beast Coast was the team that did well, and his team like they would get to the majors and bomb out. But like he really captained his team and he took his team far
Hmm.
um, this year. And they did, and Shopify. We've been talking to them. They've been a really good guys. I do feel like some sense of family, like like how it was like on Team Liquid. Maybe it's like TLO is on the org. He's like an amazing dude. I've been speaking a lot to him. So he's a very smart guy, and like I think the team is pretty excited. We're heading to like Toronto next month in January for like the boot camp. I think
Nice.
everyone's really excited, and obviously like Saberlight is joining us, so I think he'll be very good for the team. He's like I've never like laughed so hard at his like mock video of like the Team Nigma announcement
Yeah.
with like ATM.
Oh, that's good.
Like I've and the thing is I know his brother too because he came to TI and I watched that maybe 15 times. Like it's so fucking funny and and I'm usually like I kind of like having like I like joking around and sometimes a bit too much, So um but I think he's going to be a funny guy to like joke around with and clown around with.
Hmm.
So
I mean, having a player, would you say it's like just a net positive for any pro team to have a clown, basically? Do you think that's a good thing? And how many clowns are too many? And how much of a clown are you?
I hate
I think
BuLba's definitely a clown.
for this team probably I mean I think he's just a good fit. He's like I mean I don't know, it's like soups sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm not editing that out, by the way. If you're gonna belch for real.
That's a micro Suns fan right there. That is nothing.
Oops.
Don't worry. I put up with way worse than that, Sam. You're good.
I was just blabbing. What is it? Uh, I mean, I don't know how it's gonna end up. We're gonna try our VC our hardest as a team. I think like Saber is like maybe in fit what this team needs. He's like pretty similar to like Ice in some ways, So I think I'm excited, and he's also obviously like he really improved a lot this year. Like I'll be honest, I even told him this like Saber, you fucking turned it up this year, dude. So like last year when he was like kind of new, like I think a lot of people were not sure, but this year like at Stockholm Major, like he was like you saw his Mars, like
Yeah.
he played really well, and then at Arlington he beat us with entity. He was standing and randomly playing carry, and I spoke to like Fishman at this TI because obviously like when you're scouting for new players, you want to like hear opinions and stuff. And Fishman was telling me how like Saber came and like every day he was working really hard, practicing carry. Even though he was losing so many games because he's getting a new role, he didn't give up. He's super easy guy to work with, super easy teammate. All his teammates have said that. like, and that shit's important, because I've been in the scene like so long, and I've made a lot of like stupid mistakes. I'll be honest. I made mistakes like several times, the same one as well, which I regret. And
Yeah.
you know, and it's like obviously it's hindsight to look back. Like it's the same thing, right? Mistakes are mistakes, and I've been trying.
You got to learn from them, though. That's
yeah,
what you
obviously.
got. You have to
but
learn
obviously,
to learn from.
yeah, but making teams is like it's always hindsight, right? Like sometimes like the team ended up going really well. Like maybe the Daryl team ended up like or Starbomb or the Gustav when Talo and S4 came and we maybe got last to TI. You have to take risks, right?
Mhm.
So I did think like Roman coming and playing off lane ended up being good. Maybe like the Igor and us did not work out as well, but Igor's still playing. I think he's a very good off laner. Honestly, a lot of it comes down to the fit too. So,
Yeah.
and that's something maybe sometimes I also I get a little bit too like analytic in some senses, like in some ways, like for player fits and stuff like that. You have to obviously view more about like I've been trying to incorporate more of like how the human companionship is going to be, because I've always been like a very analytical, like deck factorial Dota person.
Oh, I remember.
Numbers, all that. Yeah, but I've been trying. Definitely as a coach, I've looked back and all the stupid shit I did as a human or like as a teammate and all that stuff, and even my teammates do it too. I'm like, so I'll try.
Yeah.
So I've been trying, and that's like, yeah.
That's good. Okay, last question, then we do trivia. What do you think of the state of current Dota? And is there anything that you want to change? So it can be specific. It could be like overarching things. A lot of pros have said they just want terrain changes. Is there anything high on your list that you think would improve, if there even needs to be anything?
Terrain change was probably easy. I don't know. I thought like the patch like the last few months has been like pretty good. But I usually am like fine with whatever is happening. Like honestly, the game changes itself in some ways with like the players. And this year it definitely feels like more like the last 2 years has definitely been very intense, like in terms of the nerd level. Like players have become way more nerdier. Like, you have to like nerd things out in some senses or nerd each other out and stuff. Like, so like that's also why like some of these younger players like they've been doing pretty well. Like they're like a lot of them all they do is play Dota, right? So you have to be able to have some sense of that. But as for like the terrain, I'm happy.
Do you prefer small changes or big changes? Because I remember we did, I think if I go back, didn't we do 7.0 patch analysis together when it came out, like at the hotel?
Yeah.
With slacks for some fucking reason.
I'm usually not too passionate about like wanting changes. Like I'll just take whatever is coming, because you can't ever expect shit,
Yeah.
Like I'll be honest, like I like reading it more than like guessing. That's just me.
Fair enough.
You can't ever guess stuff,
Yeah, that's true.
But I do want maybe like what is it? Some like move some camps maybe.
That's it.
Take away some camps.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about a second Roshan?
Nah, come on. Is this your shit? Like this is your shit?
I pitch this to everybody. Just listen. Just have an open mind. Just remember that a lot of stupid things I've said before have gotten into the game and people love them. Okay, just wait. There's 2 pits, so it's identical. One on the top, one on the bottom, like the one where it is now, but on the opposite side. Okay. Roche spawns in one of those 2. It's a 50-50 at the beginning of the game, and then each time he dies, he spawns in the opposite one, so he alternates. The one pit is empty. What do you think, BuLba?
I don't know. Why don't you do it in your like new game that you made, right?
That's what
do it yourself.
So Path of Guardians had these little Roshan guys that gave buffs. So I'm making it a little bit more tame
why is Sidran laughing?
I don't know. He doesn't respect good game design.
It's just such a good response. Hey, I have this idea. Why don't you fucking do it yourself in your shitty custom game?
I don't think it's shitty. I see people playing that game. I don't play custom games.
Yeah, thanks for the support, BuLba, as always.
I can't play any game except Dota. I get bored after like 10 minutes.
Well, it is Dota, kind of, in a way.
Really.
Okay.
Is it?
No, not really.
What game is it again you have?
Ability Arena.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't your teammates play the shit out of it?
Yeah, that's a lot of teams blamed our mod on losing TI. Because they just played it nonstop.
Maybe it wasn't your team, but some players were playing it a lot.
And I'll blame the audio.
Yeah.
Copium.
Okay, let's go on to trivia.
Okay, BuLba's going to beat me 3-0, right? Because he's a trivia god, he said.
Yeah, we'll see about his questions are atrocious.
Okay.
Dude,
All right.
I thought you were making the freaking question.
I know you think that. Cinderin, this is BuLba's first question. What is his favorite type of food? Is it pizza, burgers, curry, ramen?
Okay, if the options are that easy, then it's curry.
Is that correct, BuLba?
Correct.
All right.
I thought he was going to give me like 4 different Indian options, so it was like more challenging. But...
Yeah, that is okay.
Okay, that is very easy.
BuLba, what is the most times that Cinderin has listened to a single song to his knowledge?
That is not the correct question. Try again.
All right. What is Cinderin's most times listened to a song of all time to my knowledge? That's what it's written.
That is also incorrect.
Okay. Well, you wrote it incorrectly.
Okay, which song have I listened to the most? There you go.
Why didn't you just type that then? All right. The questions are...
What is the question?
Which song have I listened to the most times to my own knowledge?
The Quiet Place by In Flames. Adagio for Strings by Tiesto. Slam by Pendulum, or Changes by Tupac. I haven't heard of any of these, by the way. I'm a boomer.
Oh my god.
Not one of these.
I've only heard of the...
Just pick the one you've heard of.
No, I've heard of Pendulum, and I've heard of Tupac, and I've heard of... Who's the first dude?
In Flames and Tiesto.
Is that a Dota player? In Flames? Tiesto's like the EDM guy, right? Okay, so Cinderin, let's do it. So I don't know what the fucking Flame is. Tiesto, EDM, European. You know, most Europeans like EDM. Okay, C. What is C again?
Pendulum.
Pendulum. They're like a rock band, right? I think so. Pseudo rock, alternative. Yes.
I don't know.
I'm not giving you hints.
Okay, and then the fourth is Tupac if he likes rap. So EDM or Tupac. Let's go with EDM. Tiesto.
Cinderin.
Okay. So all of these 4 songs I really like, so they were all good options, and I've listened to them all a lot, but my most listened to song out of all of them. I had a time that I listened to The Quiet Place by In Flames. I don't know how many times. Like, a crazy amount. When I still used Winamp, it was just on repeat. So
Winamp.
much.
Wow.
Yeah. It
Really
whipped
kicks the llama's ass. Jinx.
Yeah.
LFI
It's a Swedish heavy metal band, BuLba. So not
it's a Chinese offlaner from LFI.
Yeah, Chinese offlaner.
What did BuLba say? What was his answer? It was
not
incorrect.
In Flames.
Okay, very good. Cinderin, what? This is another terrible question. What is BuLba's first pro team in Dota? And then in parentheses, can be 1 or 2. What the fuck does that mean?
Be Dota 1 or 2.
Huh?
Can be Dota 1 or 2.
Oh, Dota 1 or 2.
Yeah, it includes Dota 1 and 2.
Is it Team Pandemic, EG, Complexity, Team Liquid?
Wait, e.g. Call Liquid or Pandemic?
Yes.
I mean, you went through your entire history here, but you probably just left out Pandemic just so I didn't have it as an answer. So I'm going to say Pandemic was your first
Is that
team.
correct, BuLba?
Yes, it is.
These are the worst.
Specifically left it out of your story, so I didn't guess it or what.
All right, BuLba, which of the following...
Why did you stop doing trivia competitively?
No wonder.
Dude, I don't make the questions. I was never making them. I would fucking listen to them and answer.
Well, you've so far gotten the one question we asked you incorrect, so try to prove your worth here. Which of the following makes for a truly magnificent party trick that Cinderin can do? Is it A, lick his elbow?
Oh god, is it the one that I heard when he was walking?
Make a very high-pitched voice. C, recite pi to 50 decimals. Or D, vibrate his right cheek.
Dude, didn't you tell me about some skill he had on the way from the Indian restaurant? Like, he's the kind of guy that when he walks in front of people, he'll fart behind, like, so if you're walking behind.
The crop.
I'm gonna choose that one. I'm gonna choose that one. Yeah, I don't care. I'm choosing E.
E, crop dusting.
Crop dusting. He's the best crop duster.
That was not one of the options.
All right, so you're kind of correct, but technically incorrect here.
Is it the butt cheek one?
I'm guessing
it's not butt cheek. It's just cheek.
I'm gonna guess it was a 50 decimal one. Is that right?
That's incorrect. I can vibrate my right cheek.
What?
And
You're right.
I've never
cheek.
met
While
anyone
crop
else.
dusting.
All right, let
I've
me
never
see
met
it.
anyone else
Let's
who
see
can do
it.
it. Okay.
The fuck?
What the fuck?
It's bizarre. I don't know. I don't know how I discovered that I can do that, and I don't know why. But I've never met anyone else who can do it. Everybody who tries it just blows raspberries, right? Like, I specifically do it with my right cheek. It's a really magnificent party trick.
I'm sure you
It's
could
got me a
recite
lot
the
of-
50 decimals as well if you wanted.
No, I think I can do 12.
Okay. All right, last question for each of you. Cinderin, what is BuLba's favorite movie? Is it The Two Towers, Dark Knight, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, or Avatar? God, I hope it's not the fourth one.
Okay, so if it is any of the Lord of the Rings, I hope it's not that one, because that's the worst of the three. I'm gonna say The Dark Knight.
Okay, BuLba.
It was the Two Towers. Why do you hate the Two Towers?
It's
the
really
fuck?
good because it's Lord of the Rings, but it's the worst one.
Dude,
'cause
do
it
you
has
not
a
see the
40
Helm's Deep battle
It has
scene?
a 45-minute fight scene that should have been 5 minutes.
That was such a godly scene, though.
It's my least favorite part of Lord
What
of the
the
Rings.
fuck?
All right.
Is this? Do you share the same?
It just
Son?
doesn't evolve the plot at all.
I like
Or
all
the story.
three
It's literally
equally,
just
probably. I don't have a problem with
I think
any
the
of them.
first one's the best.
They're all amazing.
Have you seen? What about Avatar? You like that one at least?
No, Avatar was meh at best.
Avatar 2
I
was
liked
really
Av-
good.
I liked Avatar.
Oh, I didn't see the
Have you
new
I haven't
one.
seen Avatar 2
It's so
yet.
fucking good. By the way.
I will watch it with my brother between Christmas and New Year, I think. So,
Yeah.
a bit excited.
I'll wait for it to come out on Blu-ray.
The hell?
I'm gonna watch the movie before Shannon.
You have to watch. The whole point is you have to watch it in the theater.
Yeah, that's what they want you to do. All right?
Yeah, but that's the whole point of the technology.
The technology of having 60 FPS randomly in the middle of the movie and then changes. I don't
The
know.
graphics look godly, dude.
All right, we'll see. I mean, I'm more interested in storyline personally, and the blue people don't really do it for me. All right, BuLba. The same question. Well, this will be a test if you watch any episode. Okay, this will prove it. What is Cinderin's dog's name when translated to English? Is it tomato, carrot, leek, or onion?
I guess I haven't watched this episode then. Carrot?
Incorrect.
Fuck.
You got every trivia incorrect, BuLba. Congratulations. The self-proclaimed.
I'm just not that. I've never said I'm fucking king of Cinderin's fucking life.
It's like I could have had a career in trivia, but
In
Dota.
fairness, I think my questions were a little bit harder
Yes.
than his, but
Well, that goes into it as well. The skill level of creating your own trivia, which BuLba did not do very well.
it's okay.
All right, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thanks for joining us, BuLba. Always cool stories. Anything to say for all your supporters, all your haters, everybody in between?
Follow the Shopify Rebellion Twitter. Super excited for the new team this year. Thanks to everyone watching. Hope you enjoyed. How long was this one?
This is the longest
2 hours,
one.
20 minutes.
Yeah, 220.
Yeah, just
Pretty good.
blabbing with the boys. Yeah. Shout out to Shannon and Cinderin too, and my teammates.
All right, thanks, buddy.
For having
you.
me. For having me.
All right, until next time, Suns fan Cinder and BuLba signing out. Peace.
Bye-bye.
We say things that don't mean anything, but thanks for listening.
Turn off cam.
Yeah.